Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of the Irish Breakdown Podcast brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Happy Monday. Hope everybody had a fun and safe weekend, but we are back to start another week of Notre Dame's offseason. Brian, 82 days away from opening kickoff for Notre Dame on September 6th. Crazy that time is flying by, but we're rolling. We're rolling on, and there was no better way to get us started this week than with our weekly buy, sell, hold, something that we like to do for our premium message board members. If you're scrolling down there at the bottom of the screen, boards at irishbreakdown.com. And it's something we like to give back to our premium message board subscribers. There's a thread that goes up over the weekend, and they pose a bunch of different scenarios, questions, topics, and then after some discussion, Brian and I discuss whether we buy it, we sell it, or we hold it. Now, this isn't like the Friday free-for-all mailbags. So if you are a premium message board subscriber, you didn't get your question in, and always throw in a super chat and get that question in, that buy, sell, hold in. And then if you're not a premium message board subscriber, this is kind of the call to action to make sure you sign up for the boards, and you can submit as many buy, sell, holds as you would like. So, Brian, this is one of the favorite segments that we do here at Irish Breakdown, and I'm excited to dive into it this week, man.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun, man. This is going to be a very busy week. A lot going on in recruiting. We've got an intel piece that I dropped late last night, early this morning, depending on how you want to look at it. That it's a very good weekend for Notre Dame. It's going to be another very good weekend coming up. So we'll probably be a little bit busy with that a little bit this week. And of course, we continue previewing the Notre Dame 2026 football team. But of course, as always, for the summer, we will have our Monday Boss of Hold, Trev. And we have 39 different cards. So better get rocking and rolling here, man, if we want to get through everything today before tonight's show kicks off at 5 o'clock. Every Nation Sports Talk kicks off at 5 o'clock. So let's get rocking and rolling. And, of course, as always, Trev, we kick things off with our guy, Salty Virginia Peanuts.
Buy, sell, hold. Marcus Freeman has turned a presumed recruiting negative into a positive, the academic rigor of Notre Dame. It now serves as a filter for those who are willing to, quote, choose hard.
I absolutely buy this. And, we've talked about this for a long time, Trev. I think there's twofold aspects to what he's saying here. I'm going to give Salty, he's a sharp guy, given the benefit of the doubt that he sees this the way that I do when you talk about the two different aspects. Number one is you get to weed out the kids who don't, as he says, want to choose hard. The kid that doesn't want to put in the work academically, the kid that doesn't want to, get pushed in the classroom the way that, you want them to be pushed on the football field. You get to kind of weed those kids out because Notre Dame is not changing their standard. They're not, you don't get to just take 5, 6 online classes a month. You've got to go to class. You've got to put in the work. You're held to the same standard that other students are held to. Those are all good things. But also the other part of it is when you look at like the academic rigor of Notre Dame and how you turn it into a negative is it's also the aspect that we've always talked about, Trevor, which is instead of whining about the fact that your players have to do all those things, you use that as fuel to get them to understand it. This is why you're better than everybody else. This is why you're going to be tougher than everybody else. This is why you're going to be more prepared for everybody else because nobody's doing the work that you guys are doing. And unless we're going to go play like Harvard or Yale or, Columbia or something like that this weekend, nobody's putting in the work that you guys are putting in off the field and then being asked to be excellent on the field. And instead of using that as like, oh, what was us? It's like, no, that's what makes you better. That's what makes you stronger. That's something Lou Holtz did. I've talked to several Notre Dame players from the Lou Holtz era that would say that. Like, that was never an excuse for us. That's why we're better. That's why we're tougher. That's why we're mentally tougher. That's why we're more focused. So I absolutely buy that. It helps you weed out certain players in the recruiting process, but then also helps make your team better by making sure that they are disciplined and, mentally focused and mentally tough and willing to handle all those things.
Yeah, this is without a doubt a definite buy. One of the things that we've praised Marcus Freeman about is him leaning into the things that Notre Dame can provide. And the slogan 4 for forever, 4 for 40, that's not just a catchy slogan that you slap on a t-shirt. When he was first hired, Notre Dame released a video called Freeman Era. And it was a really cool video about basically the behind the scenes look of him leading up to getting hired. And he was in an interview with one of the fathers of the school, and I think it was the president of the school, was talking about how, Notre Dame is such a fantastic place, and we haven't even scratched the surface of what this place can truly be. Obviously, there's some of that goes into on the field. You haven't won a national title since 1988, but a lot of it is what you're talking about right here, Salty, of we can attract premier athletes here and set them up for a future in the NFL and then set them up for a future post-football, and he's absolutely leaned into that. So this is a definite buy for me as well. From our guy D-Troll Hunter Biso hold. The Sorsby ruling has been the most egregious so far in all NCAA court rulings.
This is an easy buy, Trev. I mean, this is because this is one of those things that is not, you can't, like, I see people that like, you know, there's something called, trying to think of the phrase that I want to use here to not get myself in trouble, but there's a group of people that just like to say things because it makes them seem like they're part of the in crowd, right? Like I'm against the NCAA. You know, they've been exploiting players with free educations for decades. You know, I mean, like there's that you know, I want to be cool, I want to be hip, I want to be known as, you know, pro player and all this other kind of stuff. And so they adopt this very lazy, everything the NCAA does is bad and wrong, which is stupid. A lot of the things that NCAA has done over the years are bad and stupid, but they're losing court cases now on things they have no business losing court cases over. And if you don't have the intellectual honesty to say that, no matter what your feelings may be about the NCAA, I mean, you're talking to a guy that for years has been very anti-NCAA in a lot of areas. But there's this thing called intellectual integrity and honesty that you got to be able to say, yeah, I don't like the NCAA, but that's nuts. And if they can't do something very basic, like not like suspend a player who literally gambled on his own team. And for people to say, well, he never bet against his team, you don't know what betting is anymore. This isn't the 1980s where Pete Rose was betting on the Reds to win or lose. This is, I'm going to bet the under on points scored. I'm going to bet the under on passing yards. That's betting against your team. And he did that not once or twice. He did that for years. And if you can't even declare that guy ineligible, then there's literally not a single rule you can enforce. Not one. And this is one of those rules where there is no other side. Trevor, there's not a single school in the country. What's there, 138 now? There's not a single school in the country that would support this happening to anyone other than their own school. If this was happening at Baylor and Dave Aranda and the leadership at Baylor was doing this to protect and support and get DJ Lagway, because they gave DJ Lagway a lot of money and they don't want to not be able to, you know, reap the benefits of that reward, Texas Tech would be one of the loudest people speaking out against it. Do you know how I know that? Because they're one of the institutions that was most like vociferous in their attacks when they loosened up gambling rules. Remember when they did that briefly? Where they were like, hey, we guys can bet on sports. And Texas Tech was like, no, that's not okay. But now that it's their quarterback they gave $5 million to, they're going to act like this is okay. We didn't murder anyone. Oh, so that's the standard? So on your players, you don't bench guys unless they murder or beat up a lady? That's the only standard that you guys have at Texas Tech? If you can't enforce this rule right here, then there just is no rules you can enforce. And players can do anything. And so all you have to do is show that, well, he'll be harmed financially by sitting out. So in theory, I'm going to make a very dramatic, intentionally shocking statement. You could murder someone, and as long as you're not in jail during the trial process, in theory, if a school says, hey, we're going to let you play, there's really not a lot you could do. I mean, because, well, I'm proving that this is obviously going to hurt me financially if I'm not allowed to play while I'm going through this terrible, process where there's very clear video that I did what I did. You know what I mean? Like, that's how crazy this whole thing is. There's no rule you can enforce now. It's just, well, our AG will defend it if it hurts a school in our state. And that's why we're here. That's why we're here. Does anyone think Ken Paxton would be suing to support another AG in another state who was doing this to support a player? No. He'd be the first person jumping on board saying, hey, this is not okay. We're going to enjoin the lawsuit to not allow the state of Oklahoma to allow Drew Mestemaker to play, who we found out was betting in North Texas games last year. Now, I'm not saying Drew Mestemaker did that. I'm using that as an example. And that's what's so gross about all this is these, politicians and states attorney generals and, that are saying, well, we'll do this if it backs you, but knowing darn well that we would be against this if this was being done by a rival school in another state. And that's what makes this whole thing so gross and why I'm so frustrated. So people are like, well, how's this any different? And all these, this is very different because this gets to the true integrity of the game. When we talk about pay for play and all that other stuff, that gets to the integrity of the soul of the game, of the sport, the college athletics, the proper view of amateurism that we should have, which in my opinion does not mean you can't be getting endorsement deals. You should be able to get endorsement deals. You should be get, some rev share. You should be able to do all these kind of things without becoming a professional athlete, which is what pay for play does. But that doesn't hurt the game, right? Like that doesn't make us question, gee, I wonder if, Mylan Graham is actually going to catch that ball on, drop that ball on purpose because he's now getting paid by Notre Dame. That doesn't cause it. We cannot like what's happened to our sport in this regard and the way that transfers happen and the way that NIL happens without saying, but the game on Saturday is still a pretty awesome product. It doesn't make us question that. I mean, look, Trev, correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't there, it gets to the point where there's betting where you can actually like bet on whether or not like the first pass is going to be complete or who's going to catch the first ball and things like that. Is that not something that you can do now, correct? Like, doesn't it get kind of crazy on some of these things like that? Like who catches the first touchdown and all this other kind of stuff, right? Well, doesn't the quarter – go ahead.
First touchdown scores, yes. Like catching a first pass, like that's more so like Super Bowl betting odds. You have to go like in person to Vegas to do this stuff like FanDuel and other sites like
but
that.
It can be done, right? So the point being, if I'm going to go to Vegas and do that and I've got enough money, I can say, hey, Brendan Sorsby, here's 10 grand if you're willing to make sure that this first pass that you throw is incomplete or the first touchdown pass that you make this season is to so-and-so. That's my whole point. Who controls that? Brendan Sorsby controls to a degree who's going to get the first touchdown. Hey, I'm going to put 10 grand on myself that I'm going to score the first touchdown. You know what I'm going to do when I get in the red zone? I'm going to keep that read zone, and I'm going to try to get into the end. You get what I'm saying, Trev? It doesn't have to be thrown the game with the way that betting is now. This isn't like, 30 years ago or 20 years ago where it was like point shaving. We're still going to win, but we're going to win by less than the spread. You can start doing all these other crazy bets, over under on passing yards or this, that, and the other thing where, hey, look, man, I'm at 195 yards and I took the over, so I better make this throw, or I took the under, so I'm going to scramble on this next play when we're up a bunch of points, or I'm going to check to a run play because I'm getting close to those numbers and things like that. That's where you start saying, man, that pass he just threw, they were up 21, and they got the ball, and the over under was 20.5, and he threw the most terrible pick six on the planet. Like it could have just been a bad play. But now, if he goes into a game and throws a pick like John Mateer did against Alabama in the playoff, you're going to be like, hold on a second. That play right there got them on the under. I wonder if he had something on the over-under. That's what we're going to have now, Trev. That's where I say this is getting to the integrity of the game. The other stuff is more of a big picture, the soul of the game. This gets down to the heart and soul of you're now watching the game wondering, gee, I wonder if this guy is doing this. And then now you're wondering about other things. Well, now that players can apparently bet on games, I wonder if that quarterback who had a surprisingly bad game and allowed that otherwise should have been a blowout game to be a lot more competitive, I wonder if he had some action on that. That's dangerous precedent to have, Trev, in an era where we already don't have a lot of trust in our institutions and things like that. Now we can't even trust the game because we don't know who's doing this or this or this because of this precedent. It's very, 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 very bad. Very bad. And all done by a judge in Lubbock, Texas, who's making a decision based off one reason and one reason only, that it benefits the school in which he lives. And people say, well, the NCAA had a bad case. The NCAA shouldn't have had to present a very strong case. This is 101 stuff. It's very dangerous.
Yeah, the only reason why people push back against the NCAA in a weak case is because now there's a lot of money involved. You got donors like Cody Campbell who are willing to give players like Brendan Sorsby near $5 million to transfer and play for the Red Raiders. And that's where you get into this issue. I buy, D-Troll, that this has been the most egregious so far in all NCAA court rulings. This opens up a really, really big, nasty can of worms. And they're not protecting him like you think that they're protecting him. The whole ruling was, the reason why we're granting him eligible is because we're concerned that if we rule him ineligible, it'll be a deterrent for other players seeking help with addiction, which is just a load of you guys know what. It's all a load of crap. That's what that is. We can be honest. Let's also have a real conversation about if you're truly concerned about his safety, you don't think one player out of the 12 teams that they're going to play are going to take it upon their own hands to make sure that he's not eligible to play? Come on. Like, we can be real about that. I'm not saying that it would be right.
Yeah.
But
we're not condoning it. We're not hoping it happens. We're not
Right.
saying it's okay, but that's also the reality. That's where we are.
That's the situation that we're in. If you're not going to overrule the, and in years past, players, I mean, I've seen other former collegiate athletes come out and speak their minds on social media platforms. Like, dude, I got suspended for an entire year because I placed 3 $5 bets on the basketball team, and I'm a
Right.
football player. But now that all this
Which
money
again
is
is wrong, and you should be suspended for, because you're placing bets. You could have insider knowledge. I mean, you can't bet on sports, but yes, you're correct. Like, but that guy's getting harsh punishment for not even betting on the sport he plays.
And you got players like, but you have Brendan Sorsby in this situation. I mean, he's making accounts under family members' names. Because for those of you who don't know, you have to use your social security card to sign up for FanDuel, or because there's so many like promotional whatever, promotional props and rewards that you can use when you're a new signee. So you have to limit ways that you can sign up for accounts. He was using family members' social security numbers to sign up for different accounts to make betting.
That's a final piece that's not being talked about this, Trev. The things he did in the state of Ohio and Indiana are literally illegal, some of the things he did. It's not even just about the integrity of the sport. That's the part I care about most. Some of the things he did were literally illegal.
Mm-hmm.
And it's nothing from Texas Tech. Oh, he's getting help. Oh, so a guy that's got a gambling addiction, you think putting him in this situation where millions and millions of dollars are on the line every game is going to be good for him and his addiction? Nonsense. I didn't have a lot of respect for Joey Maguire before this all went down. I honestly didn't think my opinion of him could get less. Boy, was I wrong.
You and me both, brother. You and me both.
Holy moly, was I wrong.
Another one in here from Detroit Hunter. Buy, sell, hold. You would be more surprised if CJ Carr wins the Heisman than if Notre Dame has 2 receivers over 800 yards.
Sell, because I think those two things go hand in hand to a degree. I mean, if CJ Carr plays well enough to win the Heisman, I think I would expect there to be 2 receivers over 800 yards.
Yeah, I mean, simply put, and look, guys, like, I understand CJ's the favorite on FanDuel to win the Heisman Trophy this year. Still ahead of Arch Manning and Julian Sain, players like that. But I'm going to buy this because just on paper, it's more difficult to win the Heisman than it is to have 2 receivers over 800 yards. Like, I wouldn't be surprised in totality if he wins the Heisman Trophy, because I think he's going to be poised for a big year this year. I'm with Brian. Those things go hand in hand, but it's easier for a team like, I know Notre Dame hasn't had 2 receivers go over 800 yards in the same season in quite some time. It's been even longer since they've had a Heisman Trophy winner. Like, winning the Heisman is a very difficult thing to do. So it's not like it's, one or the other. I think one is harder. It is. And then Kenny Minchie.
I just think to a degree, though, Trev, I just think they all they go together.
Sure.
That's kind of where I'm coming from, is if he wins the Heisman, I'll be a little surprised if there's not 2 guys with 800 yards receiving. I mean, even that, and that's including the ball being spread around. I just that's kind of how I feel. It's just, if you're going to do one, then you're going to do the other.
Sure.
And if they have 2 receivers with over 800 yards, that means CJ has a great year, and that means he's going to be a Heisman Trophy contender, because that means that Notre Dame team is going to be very hard to beat. Either way you want to go with it, I think they both lead to, you do one, you're probably going to have a good shot to do the other, which means I wouldn't be overly surprised with either one. That's kind of where I'm at on that.
Buy, sell, hold. Kenny Minchie regrets flipping to Kentucky over Nebraska by midseason.
Sell. I actually like this Kentucky team. I think he's going to have better weapons around him at Kentucky than he will in Nebraska. O-line and skill players. So no, and look, if you know Kenny, I think part of the Kentucky thing is, I mean, obviously, let's be honest, money was part of it. That's okay. That's part of the process. But I think there's also a desire to compete at a higher level, and he's a lot closer to home. It's going to be a lot cheaper and a lot better for his family to drive up or fly up from Tennessee to Kentucky and then head to all the SEC schools than it's going to be for his family to have to fly up to Piscataway or, head out where actually what is Nebraska's football schedule this year. So, his family would have had to go to that road game at Michigan State, that road game out in Eugene, Oregon, that road game up in Champaign. I was right. They would have to go to Piscataway and then up to Iowa City. So I don't know how his family lives in Tennessee, whereas playing at Kentucky, they get obviously half, and all the home games are all the way out in Lincoln, Nebraska from Tennessee. So you get to play in a better conference, in my opinion, which I think the Big Ten or the SEC will be this year. You get to play closer to home. You get to go down to Kyle Field. You get to go to South Carolina. You get to go to Norman, Oklahoma. You get to go to Knoxville, Tennessee. So 8 at Missouri, Columbia, Missouri. Your furthest game away is probably what? College Station? So there's a lot of reasons why I think Kenny won't regret that. And now the other part is the football argument. Well, it's going to be better at Nebraska this year than what it'll be at Kentucky. Maybe. I don't know that I necessarily think that it will be. I don't think Kentucky's going to be that great this year, but Trevor, neither of us think that Nebraska is going to be all that great this year either.
No,
so that's where I'm at.
I'm selling this one.
Last thing, way better system.
Yeah, without a doubt. I'm selling this one as well for all the reasons that you listed off. Also, I think for Kenny as a player, it'd be cool to be kind of a part of the resurgence of Kentucky football under Will Stein and a new head coach. It doesn't have the same draw as, hey, you want to come play for Matt Rule and maybe be the fourth quarterback that works out for him? Maybe. Like, I don't think that has as much of a draw as turning around a program in the SEC, in my opinion. So I'm with you. I'm selling this. Some more from D-Troll Hunter, buy, sell, hold. Overall, despite the chaos, college football has moved in a positive direction overall over the past 5 years.
I'm going to actually sell that. I don't think this is true. I think a lot of people point to look at all the TV numbers, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know that I believe that all those numbers are just because of the health of the game. I think a lot of the numbers on TV goes back to what we talked about before. Like, let's say something real quick, and this is going to sound a little crazy. Think about who we're sponsored by and all that, and you guys know my stance on gambling and those type of things, but I think we have a bit of a gambling problem as a country. I think there's way too much things that you can just gamble on now. You can gamble on who's going to win a primary election in a state. You can gamble on just about anything now. Gamble on mayoral elections. Mayoral races. You can gamble on all types of crazy things. You can gamble on who's going to score the first touchdown. We have a gambling problem in our country, period. And there's also fantasy sports as now in college football. There are a lot of people that watch sports or watch college football games for that reason. Now, I'm not saying if you get rid of gambling that all of a sudden nobody watches college football. I'm not saying that, but I think it's a bit of a false bubble. I don't know that people are necessarily watching the sport because, man, the beauty of the game is still there. So I do think there's some things that have been positive in recent seasons. It hasn't been all bad. I just think that the bad outweighs the good. I think that, having a little bit more freedom from a transfer standpoint is good, but I think the way that it is now is terrible. Players getting paid is something I've long talked about, is something that should be part of the process. The way it is now is very bad, and it's not helping young people. There's a lot of things that go into the sport that I don't think is healthy. Now, the actual game on Saturdays is still pretty good, although I think we're seeing some coaching taking a dip. I don't think as many coaches put emphasis on development anymore. We're turning a little bit into the NFL where you don't have as many good O-line coaches and D-line coaches as you used to. You don't have as many coaches that focus on teaching kids the foundational aspects of playing football, because why waste my time on that when I just get a kid from the portal who's already been coached that? I mean, you're hearing people like Aaron Taylor and other O-line people say the health of O-line teaching in college football is not good as a whole. Kids aren't getting taught anymore. Well, it's harder to teach kids nowadays because kids, if they don't like, if you yell at them, if you demand too much from them, guess what they can do, Trev? Fine, I'm out. So I think for every positive, there's been two negatives, just as kind of a loose making a point statement as opposed to a direct correlation. I think there's more negative that's come from than overall positives, which is disappointing because I think there are some good things. I think that expanding the playoff, getting rid of the 14 playoff was a positive, in my opinion. And I'm not someone who supported it initially, but I can now see like this is a positive. Now I don't know that 12 is the best, and we could argue 8, we could argue 16, but it's better than the 4 and the broken weight system that was. So, I mean, there's been a lot of positives, but at the same time, I think those positives are outweighed by the chaos, because the chaos, if not fixed, is destructive. I'm not someone who's as doom and gloom as other people that hey, there's only going to be 25 teams left in college football and everybody else is going to quit. No, I don't believe it's going to be that, but it is going to be very destructive. And so, no, I don't think that's a good thing.
Yeah, for a lot of those points, overall, I'm selling. There are some good individual facets of college football, in my opinion. The 12-team playoff expansion was good. And its original construction, I think paying players was good. How it's been, the execution of that has been very, 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 very poor. But to Brian's point, for every good, players are starting to get paid now. But now you have 16, 17-year-olds signing with sports agents and solely making decisions on their future based on how much money they're going to get. That's a bad part of the sport. So it's just overall, you got to sell it, but it stinks because they overshadow some of the good things the sport has actually done. I'm with you. Then a late night underrated rivalry you miss: Nevada Reno versus Boise State back in their heyday.
And he did say on there, we didn't really have room for him. And he goes, I know, Trevor, you have to hold because it was before you were born. But I actually think this rivalry was around when you were still younger. I mean, I still remember some of those games between the Nevada and Boise State when Colin Kaepernick was there, when Chris Alt was the head coach, and they were a pretty good team. I think when they were both Mountain West teams, I think that I buy that. I think that was I love the games between Nevada and Boise State. I think it's a very underrated rivalry. I buy that completely.
Fair enough. I was going to end up selling it because I never watched it anyways.
Oh, missing out. Some great games back in the day. We have another Boise State question here now, Trev.
Buy, sell, hold from D-Troll Hunter. Chris Peterson is a Hall of Fame head coach.
Easy buy. Absolutely easy buy. I mean, you're talking about a guy that, number one, was the offensive coordinator at Boise State during a period of time when they were brilliant. I mean, that he was there as the OC from 01 to 05. He was an absolutely fantastic coach. He was the OC there when Dan Hawkins was there. During his 5 years, they went 8-4, 12-1, 13-1, 11-1, and 9-4 as OC. Then he takes over as head coach, and he literally turns them into a powerhouse. I mean, there's no other way to spin that. He literally turned them into a powerhouse. And I don't just mean a Mountain West powerhouse. I mean a national powerhouse. There were a couple Boise State teams where you're like, if they could have played the number 1 ranked team in the country that year, they could have gave them a game. And just played in some absolutely brilliant games. I mean, from 2006 to 2012, Trev, they went 13-0, 10-3, 12-1, 14-0, 12-1, 12-1, 11-2. And then went 8-4 last year, and then he went to Washington, takes over a Washington team that was really bad. You had one good year under Sark, but there was a lot of issues at Washington. He had been, I think, one season with more than 7 wins. And Chris Peterson goes 8-6, 7-6 his first 2 years. And then his last 3 years, they go 12-2, 10-3, 10-4. And he built them up as well. You're talking about a guy with 147-38 career record, great record as an offensive coordinator, went 92-12 at BYU or Boise State, has 5 top 10 finishes. And the thing about the years at Boise State, they weren't just out there beating up on nobodies. I mean, his first year as head coach, they beat Oregon State in the non-conference 42-14. They beat Utah on the road 36-3. And that was the year that they beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl, number 7 Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl. And still to this day, one of the greatest bowl games ever played. Next year they went out. They did lose to Washington that next year. They were a 10-3 team, not quite as good. 2008, they go out and beat Oregon on the road, number 17 Oregon on the road in the regular season, lose a 1-point game to TCU. 2000 in the bowl game. 2009, they beat Oregon again, 19-8. That's the game, if you remember, Trevor, when LeGarrette Blount punched that guy in the face in
Yeah.
the post game. And then they got their payback against TCU, beating TCU in the Fiesta Bowl, number 3 TCU, which allowed Boise State to finish the year ranked in the top 5. Next year, 2010, same deal. They beat Virginia Tech in a non-conference game. They beat Oregon State in a non-conference game. Lost at Nevada, by the way, Trev, and then beat Utah 26-3 in a bowl game. And then went out in 2011, finished in the top 10 again. Beat Georgia on a neutral field by 14, and then beat Arizona in a bowl game by 32. Like, they weren't, like I said, they weren't just, oh, you're a Mountain West G5 contender. Next year, they lost to Michigan State, beat BYU, and then beat Washington in a bowl game. So when you look at Chris Peterson, Trev, they weren't just out there beating up on the Mountain West. They were dominating all of college football. I mean, they were outstanding against all of college football. They had big wins over Georgia, Virginia Tech, Oregon State, Washington, TCU. Did a great job there. So, yes, the only knock on Chris Peterson's Hall of Fame case, in my opinion, is longevity. He didn't coach a real long time. He burned out pretty quick, in my opinion. But I think he made enough of an impact. I mean, he changed the game. I mean, he's the reason a lot of these schools work so hard to try to eliminate the G5 from really being on the same level. You know, hey, we want to make sure there's never another Boise State. And he truly did a phenomenal job. Phenomenal job. So, yeah, I would vote for him as a Hall of Famer. And he was, I think, also true, Trev, is a little bit, I don't say revolutionary, but like he was an offensive genius. He wasn't just putting out W's. He was an offensive genius during his tenure as well.
Yeah, it's a buy for me as well. You talk about his impact at the game, and the tenure discussion is interesting because it's, he didn't have his longevity of a longer track record of success like a Nick Saban did or like Dabo did from his time at Clemson from like basically 13 to 20. I mean, he made the playoffs at 23, so about a decade of success. But when you, even albeit a short stint of time, have blue blood level of success at a place like Boise State, yeah, that puts you in the Hall of Fame discussion. So he'd get my vote as well. Urban Meyer, do you buy, sell, or hold Urban Meyer calling out LSU for tampering from his time at Ohio State?
No, I sell. Where were you then? I can't stand coaches that do this kind of stuff way after the fact. Where were you then? Like, where were you at the time? Why are you not calling him out now? Like, I don't even know what he said. I don't even know what he said, but that's my whole thing is like, I don't like when now that it's cool to call people out for tampering. Now you want to act like, where were you when you were still coaching and you could have actually done something about it? So sell that. What do you say, Trev?
Yeah, I'm selling it as well for the reason that you said, and also maybe it's because I'm an untrustworthy or I'm hard to. It's difficult for me to trust people. But you're also going to sit there and convince me that you didn't do anything shady during your time at Ohio State, or your staff didn't do it either. I also find that hard to believe. We're in this era of finger pointing. I mean, we're seeing it actively right now in the SEC. It's like, well, you just wait for me to air it out. All right, Pete Golding. All right, because everything that you've done is upstanding. Like,
right.
I'm selling it.
Yep.
From Never Missed a Meal Wagner, buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame will only finish out of the top 3 recruiting rankings because they chose to have a smaller class, not because the class is not top 3 quality.
Buy. Yeah, I'll buy that. I think for now and in the foreseeable future, the next couple cycles, next 3-4 cycles, I think as long as Marcus Freeman is here, the only way Notre Dame doesn't finish in the top 3 is if it's because their class is smaller. I'll buy that. I mean, they're just recruiting at a different level right now, which then leads to more, ideally, the thought is it leads to more on-field success, which then leads to more recruiting success. So, yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, I'm buying it as well. Per the recruiting services, there's a reason why, USC, as far as quality of talent, they brought in a very good class last year. But I don't think that they had a better class than what Notre Dame had.
Yeah.
But because they brought in like 35 guys, they were ranked ahead by some outlets. So,
Yep.
Another one from Never Missed a Meal Wagner. Buy, sell, hold. If Peyton Bowen and Jadon Blair had stayed with Notre Dame, they would have been a part of the best safety room in the nation and would have elevated the secondary to 2001 Miami level, which had Ed Reed, a unanimous All-American, Philip Buchanan, Mike Rumpf, Sean Taylor, Antrell Roll, and James Lewis.
Look, I think Notre Dame has the best secondary in college football right now, and I think if Jadon Blair and Peyton Bowen were here, I think that would have continued. But you don't know how that would have impacted other players, but I'm selling the notion that they would have been the 2001 Miami level. Like you can be the best in the game. Like I had this response to somebody the other day on the board. They're talking about Ashton Craig, and they were like, "Well, if I said he's not an elite player. No one ever said he was an elite player. He's a very good player. Don't know if you ever used the word elite." And they're like, "Well, how can you be a top 5 to 10 center and not be elite?" So you could be the number 1 center in the country and not be elite. You being elite is not based on where you're ranked. You being elite is based on, are you elite or not? There could be a year where you're the 4th best player in the position in the country and you're still elite. And then there could be years where you're the number 1 player in your country and you're not elite. It's based on your quality of play. I think they have the best secondary in college football, but it's nowhere close to Ed Reed and Sean Taylor and all those. I mean, those are those are like 5, 6 first-round draft picks in there. Reed was a first-round draft pick. Buchanan was, Rumpf was, Taylor was, Roll was. They were all first-round draft picks. And they were at least 2 of them were generational players. I think Sean Taylor and Ed Reed were generational players. So I would not start comparing them to players from a different era. I'd say, are they the best in football right now? Yes, that's all that matters. And it's like saying, well, the number 1 offense, you weren't even as good offensive as 2019 LSU, and still the best offense in college football this year, and that's all we needed to be. We didn't play that team this year. Notre Dame doesn't play 2001 Miami this year, so there's no need to. They don't have to be that good. So look, I know we're excited about this team. I don't necessarily want to spend the whole offseason comparing this team to 2019 LSU and 2001 Miami and 95 Nebraska. I just want to make sure that they're better than 2026 Ohio State and 2026 Georgia and 2026 Miami and 2026 BYU and 2026 Oregon and 2026 Indiana. That's all. Let's see them do that first, and then we can talk about whether or not they belong to certain things. And I don't know that Peyton Bowen has shown himself to be good enough at Oklahoma, nor has Jadon Blair necessarily proved himself to the level where we can say that they on this team would somehow mean that they could compete with Ed Reed and Sean Taylor. I don't think Peyton Bowen's as good as the 2 kids that Notre Dame has in their starting lineup right now. And I don't think either one of those kids are as good as Ed Reed or Sean Taylor. And that's okay. They don't have to be. Those guys don't play college football anymore. And there's nobody like them in college football. If Caleb Downs was back, I wouldn't say he's as good as Ed Reed. So, I'm sell that one. I love the excitement about the team, though. I really do. This isn't a chastisement. It's just like, let's let this team kind of go out and do something first.
I sell it as well. It's the same conversation as like the statues conversation. I would love nothing more than Marcus Freeman to have a statue in South Bend. But I don't want to start talking about his 3rd and 4th national title wins until he gets number 1.
Right.
I'm with you on that.
And somebody said we'll need at least 5 or 6 years to know if we had 01 Miami talent. I don't agree with that, because I don't know that I care. When I talk about Ed Reed and Sean Taylor, they could have been busts in the NFL, and it doesn't change my opinion of what they were at Miami. Like, I know people do this a lot, and they want to say, well, look what this guy did in the NFL. I don't care. Tim Tebow was a average to bad NFL football player. It doesn't take anything away from how good he was in college. Vince Young was not a very good NFL football player. It has nothing to do with what he was in college. You know what I mean? Like, we could watch this team play this year and have a sense that, hey, I didn't need to see Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and Justin Jefferson do a thing in the NFL for me to say that's one of the greatest offenses I've ever seen in my life. You know what I mean? Like, we knew Miami's defense was elite and generational in 01. We didn't need 5-6 years to know that. It's about what they do in college. Now, if it's backed up with NFL success, that makes the argument even better. But honestly, I mean, we could know now, that what you're watching is special. I didn't need to see Charles Woodson do a thing in the NFL to know that I've never seen a season like that from a defensive player in my life.
Oh,
I didn't need to see
we,
Ndamukong Suh dominate in the NFL to know this guy's different as a college football player. Go ahead, Trev.
yeah, we were talking about that in our top 10 offensive player rankings last week. I didn't need to see Jeremiah Love take a snap of football in the NFL to know that he was going to be in my top 10 offensive players list at Notre Dame from 2000 to 2025.
Sure.
There are some players like Sean Taylor and Ed Reed where you just know when you're watching them that it's special and it's different. Like, and if Tay Johnson and Adon Schuler and Luke Talich and Joey O'Brien and Ethan Long have a season that is anywhere similar to Sean Taylor and Philip Buchanan and Ed Reed and Antrell Roll, then we're going to know at the time. We won't have to wait to see the 2027 safety room to know if it was legit.
Yep.
Another one from Never Missed Emil Wagner. I've gotten the most out of Emil Wagner as far as the name goes and need a new permanent name for the IB board. So buy, sell, hold each one. Here's option number 1, Brian. Catch a tiger by the tail.
I buy that. I like that.
This is my favorite one up next. No Holtz barred.
I like that too. I'll buy that.
Yep, buying that one as well. Call me Ismail.
I don't get that one. Just doesn't have the same. I'll sell that one. It doesn't have the same. Just doesn't pop like the others.
This one, it took me a second to understand, but now I get it. Crumb alm in, the water's fine.
Yeah, crumb on in, the water's fine. Yeah, it took me a second to get that one too. I'm going to sell that one. But that's a nice attempt. I'm gonna sell that one.
I'm selling that one strictly because when you submit a buy sell hold, I don't want to have to try to work through and navigate that every time because I'm going to trip it up and I'm going to mess it up and not do the name justice.
The other part too is if it takes you a while to figure it out, then it kind of misses the mark of what you're trying to accomplish. It needs to pop. The first couple popped.
Then no car like a booba car.
I like that one. That one's good too. I'll buy that one as well.
Some more from Never Miss Emil Wagner. Is this a buy one, sell one,
it's
hold
continuation
one?
of the ones.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yep.
Clausen, Tossin, TDs.
I'm going to sell that one. It's a catchy name, but I'd want to use something from an era where they were good. That's not his fault, but I just, yeah.
Final ones. I get where you're coming at from here, Mr. Emil. Itty Bitty TT Committee.
Itty Bitty TT Committee. I'm going to sell that one. I like it. It was creative, but I'm going to sell that one.
And then none of these and keep working on it.
I mean, I'll sell that. You can keep working on it if you want, but I think you have a couple that are really good here. I think, catch a tiger by the tail is good. I think no Holtz barred is really good. And I think no car like a booba car is really good. I will say this, the one about the first one and the second one, I think is probably would make a lot more sense because no car like a booba car in 3-4 years may not have the same ring to it, because they're long gone. Whereas the no Holtz barred is one where that one's always going to have something.
Yeah. My vote is for no Holtz barred.
Yeah.
Yep.
Same here. BPS, Ballpeen Shillelagh agrees with us. Raymond Harton agrees with us. DJ agrees with us. Yeah, so there you go. There you go.
We got the buy sell hold going on here today in the Irish Breakdown podcast brought to you by FanDuel. And we have Skull Irish getting us kicked off here. Presume that we don't see Charles Jagsaw in 2026. Coming out of this season, we'll be saying, quote, Will Black is Notre Dame's best offensive lineman.
I buy that that's a possibility. I don't know that I'd buy that. Like if I had to say, okay, it's either going to happen or not, Brian, then I'd say sell. Is it possible? Like as of right, I'd say sell because what's different about this, it's like comparing Joe Alt's 2022 season. Joe Alt in 2022 was Notre Dame's best offensive lineman. Would you agree with that, Trev? That was partially because of how good he was, but also, let's be honest, partially about because there wasn't anybody that was all that good on the offensive line. Like when I mean that good, I mean like when we're talking about like no one else is in that potential All-American category. I don't want to make it seem like guys like Zeke Correll, weren't good football players. They were good, solid football players. But what I mean is they weren't on the level of like a Joe Alt. What's different about what Will Black is experiencing in 2026 is there's other guys like him in the offensive line. Gerby Lambert, for example, Anthony Knapp, who is not as talented as Will Black overall, but is now going to have 2 whole years of experience under his belt and is now getting to play the position that I think his game is best suited. So it's possible, but it's going to be a little tougher for him to earn that in year 2 than it was, for example, Joe Alt in 2022, or even Gerby Lambert last year, because Gerby was competing against Anthony Knapp, Billy Schrouth, and for a time Ashton Craig, who are really good football players. So it's just a little bit different for him in that case.
Yeah, I'm selling this one as well, and it's not because this is not an indictment of Will Black. It's because I think we're going to be having that conversation about Gerby Lambert or Anthony Knapp. I mean, it's a very similar situation to what Gerby Lambert was in last year. When he stepped into the starting lineup, he was the most physically gifted offensive lineman in the starting lineup between Craig, Schrouth, Knapp at left tackle, and then Emil Wagner at right tackle. But their best offensive lineman last year was probably Billy Schrouth. But Gerby Lambert was the most talented, and so it'll be one of those discussions. But I'm selling this not because I think Will Black is going to have a bad season. I think our takeaway is going to be wait till 2027. Will Black is about to be a monster, but Gerby Lambert was their best offensive lineman this year.
Or I think Anthony Knapp could be that guy as well.
For sure.
One of those two. Agree with you.
Got one in here from Z-Man 381. Buy, sell, hold each one. The closest comparison for each 2027 position group, Brian's anticipated class to another recruiting class in the Marcus Freeman era. Bonus question, which position group would be better? So the 2027 quarterback class is most comparable to the 2024 quarterback recruiting class. Buy, sell, hold.
So this is actually fun, Trev. So it's going to be buy, sell, hold each one. So comparing this one and to what he perceives as the best most recently. Am I reading that right? Right, close. Mm-hmm. So I'm buying that's the closest comparison, and then I'm saying whether or not I think 27 is better. Am I reading that correctly?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Let's do it. And then this goes on to the next page. By the way,
cool.
There's another. I just didn't with some of these ones where it went down the bottom. I didn't have enough room to put continued on there, so that's why it'll go on the next one. So 27 quarterback. Let's go verse 2024. So you're comparing Champ Mons to CJ Carr. I buy that as being the most the closest comparison. And I've said that I think that Champ Mons is the most physically gifted quarterback to commit to Notre Dame since CJ Carr. And I would argue that Champ has more physical tools than CJ. Right now, I can't compare Champ to CJ from a reading defenses and all that type of standpoint because he's just a sophomore and he only played 4 games as a sophomore. Having said that, I think he's quite advanced for his age. And that's one of the reasons that I'm so high on Champ Mons. It's not just the physical tools. It's also, I think he has the mind for the game also that you're going to see more and more and more as he gets older. And so, yeah, I buy that. Is he better than CJ as of today, June 15th of 2026? No. Could he be by the time we get to signing day next year? Possible. Very possible. He's a very talented quarterback, but I'm just not ready to go there yet. He's going to have to show me he can be that. There's some parts of this class that are better than past years. I was actually talking with a buddy last night, Trev, who he went through and compared this class if they get certain guys. Because when he talks about anticipated class, so for argument's sake, Trev, let's say they get Julius Jones Jr., let's say they get Albert Simeon, let's say they get Abraham Cisse, let's say they get Braden Parks, let's say they get Caden Henderson, and let's say they get Roman Igwebuikwe. Let's just say that's who they get, just for argument's sake. And he was comparing it to how it stacks up against the 90 class, which he views as the greatest of his lifetime. And he was doing it in a way where I didn't bring it up because I was 12. I wasn't really following recruiting at the time the way that he was. And he was like, I think the 27 class is going to be better here, 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 and here. And I'm like, dude, seriously? Like, okay, let's roll, and so like this has the chance to be truly a generational class. And what's ironic is in some ways, if you're say, well, who does it compare with against the last 30 years for some of these positions, like running back right here, Trev, it's going to be compared to last year's class.
Yeah.
And so he's got that obviously in 26, Osborne and Jonas Walton. Sure, it's the most recent comparable position. I think it compares more, in my opinion, to the 2015 class of Josh Adams and Dexter Williams. And the reason I say that is because Jonas and Javion were pretty advanced players, where I think Isaiah Rodgers is still kind of raw, which is I think why it reminds me more of the Josh Adams Dexter Williams class, where there was a lot of talent, but that class was still kind of learning the position to a degree. It was more about the talent than necessarily some of the technical skill, which I think is especially true for Isaiah Rodgers. I think my opinion might change after we see their senior years, but I think maybe 15 might actually be even closer to that one.
Yeah, in totality, I would agree that 15 is probably the closest. But in the Marcus Freeman era, it's the 26 class. I'm with you. The 27 wide receiver class is most closest to the 2024 wide receiver recruiting class.
He's looking obviously at a smaller class that had Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert, and Logan Soldate. Boy, that's a good one. I'm gonna sell it because I think the 27 class the top two guys were kind of similar body types. Their game was different with Cam Williams and Micah Gilbert. It also had three guys. I'm actually gonna go and let me just refresh my memory real quick to make sure that I'm not wrong about what I'm about to say. But I'm actually gonna compare it to. Let me just give me a second, Trev. Let me just look this up, make sure that my memory is correct here. So they got 1, 2. Yeah. I'm going to compare it more to the 2007 receiver class, because you had two receivers in that class, big, tall, vertical guy, and then a 5'10 and 5'11 guy that was a great after the catch guy, had speed, could go up and get it. And that's the Duval Kamara Golden Tate class. Yeah, Duval, who's that 6'4", 6'5" vertical player. Now, Duval was actually considered the better prospect back then. But Duval's game is not too far away from Jackson Coleman's. Duval was a little bit thicker and stronger. And so obviously that was part of his game a little bit. But, the point is big, tall outside guy and then dynamic 5'10-ish guy. And who's the player that we've compared Julius Jones Jr. the most to? It's Golden Tate, because he can play slot, he can play outside, he can win contested catches, he can go up and get it, he's dynamic after the catch, he can run, he's strong, all those things. And so I think and it's a two-man class where the 24 class has the advantage from the standpoint of you had a guy like Cam Williams, who's a big-time prospect. You had Micah Gilbert, who would compare, comparably to Jackson Coleman, but then you had Logan Soldate. What do you do with that one? Because there is no Logan Soldate in this class. Now, if they would have got Osani Gales, then maybe we could have had this conversation. But it's most likely going to be a two-man class if they get Julius. But that's kind of where I'm at on that, Trev. That's why I like that 07 comparison, because again, 07 also has a player that I've compared one of these guys directly to during the recruiting process.
Yeah, that's a very equivalent comparison for sure.
Thank you, sir. So I guess you were 10 at the time. So that's you understand what I mean when I'm like having trouble with, my buddy wants to talk about the 1990 class. And I'm like, bro, I was like 11 when that class signed, like I remember it, people being excited about it, but I couldn't tell you how Olu Olubabola compares as a player to Aaron Taylor, or,
right.
or how Lathan Wissington compares to Jerome Bettis coming out, or how David Fuller-Runcho compares to Bryant Young. Like, I can't tell you that. I'd have no clue what those guys were like in high school.
Yeah, because that's when the recruiting class got to campus. I was not watching Golden Tate in high school when I was 9. Like, that's right. Just, that's what makes it so hard.
Yep. So you're going to just have to trust me on this one, Trevor.
For tight ends in the 27 class is most comparable to the 23 tight end class.
So basically, you're just comparing him to Cooper Flanagan. Basically, right? I'll go with that. I'll buy that. I think Cooper Flanagan had a higher floor than Titus Hawk. I think Titus Hawk has a slightly higher ceiling than Cooper Flanagan. but I'll buy that.
How about the 27 O-line class to the 24 O-line class? That was the class with Gerby Lambert, Anthony Knapp.
That's an easy one. I don't know that I'll sell that. Honestly, this offensive line class is significantly better than that offensive line class. And I liked Peter Jones and Styles Prescott. But this class would have 3 big-time recruits where the 27 class had 1. And then Anthony Knapp was a guy with a really high ceiling. I gave him a 4.5-star upside grade, but he was a guy that had to show that he could hold up. You know, he was like 265 when he signed with Notre Dame, 270 when he signed with Notre Dame. Then you had Styles Prescott and Peter Jones. I liked Peter a lot. It's a good physical guard. Styles was going to need time, and still does to a degree. And so in my projected class, it's Albert Simeon who's going to be a 5-star. Olubabolo is going to be a 5-star. You've got James Halter who's a top 100 recruit. Then you've got Jackson Hill, who's a lot like Styles Prescott, maybe a little bit more talented and certainly bigger. And then you've got Richie Flanagan, who I think does in some ways compare favorably to Peter Jones. Not quite as big as Peter, but more athletic than Peter. So it's a much bigger class and more top-heavy than that class was. So that's why I'm going to sell that one, Trev. If you were to ask me a class that compares to that one, I'd probably go last year's class, honestly, is the most recent comparison. If you don't want to do last year's class, I'd say I'd probably go back to 23. That was a class that had Jagasol was a high upside player, Sullivan Absher, Sam Pendleton, Christopher Tarrick, and I'm completely drawing a blank on who the 5th guy was in that class. Joe Otting. But I honestly think last year's class was even better. Top to bottom. It was deeper, and that's what I like about this year's class. The difference was the 6 versus 5. And that's why I say if you want to go direct number comparisons, that's why I think 23 would probably be the class that was the closest to. So I'd sell that one.
D-line, pretty easy. Consensus buy with the comparison for the 27 class being the most recent in the 26 class.
Yep. Easy. Which one's better? Top 4 to top 4, it's a draw. You go with the 27 class because in this scenario, they're getting one more player.
Yep. Agreed. Linebacker, 25 class.
I'm going to sell that and say that it needs to be compared to the 23 class. The 25 class was very good. You had Madden Faremo, but after that, there was a drop-off. You know, Anthony Sacca was not as good as the seniors he was. He was not that second elite player. One of the regrets, and I said it at the time to I think I might have said it on the board, but I had Anthony Sacca as a top 100 player, but I didn't feel good about it. There just was something about his game and how he developed that I just wasn't comfortable with. And that got proven to be true his freshman year at Notre Dame. But I think the 27 class to me is more comparable to the 23 class. Now, it's not a direct comparison because that class, I believe, had 3 linebackers in it. This class has 2. But I think if they got Caden Henderson and Rome Nigwe-Buikwe, that would compare much more favorably to the 23 class with Drake Bowen and Jaden Osbury. He also had Preston Zinner, but he was kind of a hybrid athlete type of guy. There isn't that guy in this class, which I get. But those two compare very favorably to Drake and Jaden. With Caden being a lot like Jaden, and then Roman being like Drake. So I'd buy that. And then I'd probably still take 23 over 27 because I think Caden is better than Drake and Jaden, but I think the second of Drake and Jaden is slightly better, like is better than Roman by enough to where I'd probably lean towards 23. But I would say that I don't do that with a lot of confidence, Trev, because I think there's a level of it's hard to disassociate the fact that that's been the 2 best linebackers the last 2 years on the roster. So it's a little, you know what I mean? Like it's a little bit harder to make that fair comparison. But yeah, I would lean towards 23, but I would say that the upside of the 27 linebacker class is even higher. And I might allow me to change my mind once we've seen the senior seasons of these kids too. Remember, we're comparing juniors to seniors. Sure. And so if we're doing this a year from now, we might be like, oh no, 27's better, or worse if they don't have good senior seasons. So that's why I'll say I'll still take the older group now, but if it's close, I'm going to lean towards the guys that are more proven.
How about the 27 cornerback class being compared to the 25 cornerback class?
that would obviously be Mark Zachary. I'm going to sell that because the difference is much different class numbers wise. So we're talking about two really good corners, Ace Austin and of course Xavier Hassan, both top 100 players. But that class had Dallas Golden, it had Mark Zachary, and it had Cree Thomas. And because Cree was so good, it's a little different with Preston Zinner, where you're like, you like him, but you're not. How's he? That was three really good players, like guys that you knew could play. And so that's why I'm going to lean towards the 27 class being better than 20. I mean, the 25 class being better because it had more players, but I think that's also what makes it not as comparable. I think where this class would compare more favorably, in my opinion, would be the 22 class of Benjamin Morrison and Jaden Mickey. I would lean towards the 27 class because I think Xavier Hassan is on Benjamin Morrison's level, but Ace Austin's better than Jaden Mickey. But I think it's a very similar type of players, very similar talent. One's a nickel field, the other one's a boundary kind of guy. I would say that for now, I'd probably lean towards the 27 class because I think the second player, there's a bigger gap between, I think Benjamin Morrison's better than Xavier Hassan. Benjamin Morrison's senior year is better than Xavier Hassan's junior year by a little bit. Now let's see what Zay does, as a senior. And that story might change a little bit, but I think Ace Austin is definitely better than what Jaden Mickey. And I like Jaden Mickey, but Ace Austin's a better player than what Jaden Mickey was by more than you could argue that Benjamin Morrison's better than Xavier Hassan. And I think there's an argument to make that says Xavier is actually better than Benjamin because he's physically more gifted. But I'm even just for the sake of argument, he's not as good as a junior as Xavier was as Benjamin was as a senior. Correct? Let's just go with that for argument. That gap is much smaller and more debatable, I think, than who's better, Ace Austin or Jaden Mickey. I don't think that's debatable. And I don't agree. And Jaden's a nice player, but it's not close.
Yeah, agreed completely. Jaden Mickey was a solid pickup, but Ace Austin's ceiling is significantly higher than Jaden Mickey's. I'm with you.
And I would argue Flores as well, just because he's a much better athlete. Yeah.
How about 27 safeties most compared to the 23 safety class?
That was a Don, and then who else did they get in that class? I'm drawing a
Minnick?
It was a Minnick. Yeah, I think so. Let me just pull it up here real quick. Let me pull up my old trusty 2023 commits page from Irish Breakdown, which you can find at the top in the recruiting thread. But you had Ben Minnick and a Don Schuler. Ben Minnick projected more as a nickel safety, which is exactly what John Gay projects as. I think a Don Schuler and Zayden Gamble comparisons are really favorable. Very favorable. I don't know that a Don would be the number one example of skill set comparison. I think that's more in line with Xavier Watts. He's more comparable to Xavier skill-wise. But I think he brings a lot of the intangibles and a similar positional fit to the game than what a Don does, even though their skill set's a little bit different. I think Zayden's going to bring the same kind of intangibles that a hard worker, great attitude, tough kid, leader, who's underrated athletically. I think that their skill set's a little bit different. I think Zayden as an athlete compares more to Xavier as an athlete than a Don, whereas a Don's more of a physical athlete, where Zayden and Xavier were more smooth athletes. It's not better or worse athlete. It's just a different type of athlete. And that's why I think that I'd compare more to Xavier. But as far as just taking the 2 for 2 and the roles and the things like that, I think the 23 class is very comparable. The reason that I'm going to take the 27 class over the 23 class is I think if we call Zayden and Adon a wash, just for argument's sake, I think John Gay's a much better prospect than Ben Minnick. Upside wise.
Yeah.
And again, if you compare their junior seasons, that's especially true. I think Ben Minnick was my lowest ranked player in that class defensively. And he was a good player. He was a very good player. But I just think John Gay's better. This isn't retroactive, I didn't think Ben Minnick could play. I think Ben Minnick was a very good player. His senior year was outstanding. I did not like the commitment they got from Ben Minnick when he got it as a junior. But his senior year was outstanding. I mean, he was really good, and his grade went up. But I still think John Gay at the same time is a better prospect, and he projects better to the next level as well. That's a good one. That was fun, Trev. That was a really good submission. What say
Yeah, that
you
was
on the last one, on the safety one?
Yeah, as far as like breaking down the player comparisons, I think you're spot on. I think that John Gay has a higher ceiling overall than Ben Minnick. Ben Minnick was a great athlete. It's just he struggled staying healthy, but they both project to the same. So I'll be interested to see how the 27 class finishes, or if they add another person to go along and get another true safety to go alongside Zayden Gamble. But as of right now, that's a safe comparison where the class is currently. From, I believe this is Sean Stewart, 63. Buy, sell, hold. If they were to do a quarterback competition like they used to do for the NFL Pro Bowl,
which
if
I
they were,
loved, by the way. Those
oh
were so
yeah,
much fun to watch.
oh, back in the day when it was they're doing like the longest throwing competitions and
Yeah, dude, back in the, I think, late 80s, early 90s, they also had like these sprinting competitions between athletes of different sports. I remember, I think it was, could be wrong on this, I think it was like Herschel Walker and I don't know, like another football player against like Sugar Ray Leonard and Wayne Gretzky, and just watching the two football players just destroy Wayne Gretzky and Sugar Ray Leonard in a race. Well, it's like, hey, guys, this is a different type of athlete. You know what I mean? Like, but those were fun, and they were all doing it like collared shirts. But then they also used to have the NFL fastest man competition, where it was just literally NFL players just sprinting to see who the fastest guy was. Oh, those were so much fun. You would never do that now. They would never do that now. But yeah, that was awesome. I remember those things that we did as we watched as kids. But yeah, back to the Pro Bowl, the QB competition, which, as I said, were always fun.
If they were to compete in their respective prime Notre Dame careers, buy one, sell one, hold one between Quinn, Carr, and Clausen.
That is a tough one. Oh man. I love Brady Quinn. If you put the pads on, was the better college player. We talked about this, but Brady is not winning a skills competition. Brady Quinn was great when the pads came on. Brady Quinn was like Notre Dame's version of Tim Tebow insofar as not that he was better when the pads were on, not in a 7-on-7, not in a skills competition. Brady wasn't super accurate. You know, we've talked about this. He had a little bit of a longer delivery. Brady's greatness came with what he did when the pads were on. Like, I would honestly replace, if I was saying, hey, Brian, in the last 20 years, you got to give me the 3 best quarterback for a skills competition. Who would they be? I'd be like, it'd be Jimmy Clausen and CJ Carr for sure. The third one I'd put in there would be Everett Golson. Like that'd be my third. But in this one, I would probably buy, man, that's tough. In their prime, I'd probably buy Jimmy, hold CJ, and sell Brady as of right now. But again, we're comparing CJ's sophomore year to Jimmy's junior year. My answer might change at the end of the 2026 season when CJ Carr has gotten to have his third season. But as of right now, I would go Jimmy, buy Jimmy, hold CJ, sell Brady Quinn.
Yeah, in a skills competition in its entirety, we have the exact same order, because the tough part is, like you said, CJ Carr hasn't entered his prime at Notre Dame yet. The one individual skill, actually, there's a couple that I think Brady Quinn would have a chance at winning. Like if they just did like a fastest quarterback skilled competition, Brady might be able to take that home.
And that wasn't part of the NFL Pro Bowl when it was all like accuracy. And the only thing that would Brady might have a shot at is the distance. They had a distance competition, but it was like accuracy and all that. And I don't know that Brady would have done well in those.
No, I was about to say the only one that he could do from like a throwing perspective was the strength one, because he was just a massive person.
Yeah, he's big, strong. Now it had floated up there for 7 minutes.
Yeah,
it had taken a while to get down, but it had gone far. You know, I mean, that was the thing. Brady threw them floaters, boy. But he could throw them floaters pretty far. There's no doubt about that. But Brady was a great football player as a quarterback. And that's why I say it's like I've said this in the show to make a point. If I'm running a 7-on-7 team, I'd take Tommy Rees over Tim Tebow every day of the week. Every day of the week, I'd take Tommy Rees over Tim Tebow. If we're talking about, though, with pads on and 11-on-11, Tommy Rees wouldn't even take Tommy Rees over Tim Tebow.
Yeah.
Bill Rees wouldn't take Tommy Rees over Tim. Like, so neither of those are insults to Tommy Rees, by the way. I'm making the point that certain things are geared towards a certain skill set. And guys like Tim Tebow, like Vince Young would have been, I would never pick Vince Young for a 7-on-7 team. Ever. I would never pick Vince Young to be my representative for a skills competition. But if it's an 11-on-11 game, we're gonna have a different conversation. And that's what that's why I don't pick Brady there. So, assigned cosine tangent said that may be the first time I've ever seen you sell Quinn in anything. Not true. I had to do that again recently. Remember, there was one recently, Trev. But I'm pretty sure I've also taken some Tony Rice submissions over Brady Quinn. So, yeah. That's a good one.
It's always a rough day for you whenever you have to sell Brady Quinn in something.
It is. It is. It absolutely is. But in this one, I think even Brady would agree with me on this one.
Yeah.
But I can always caveat, put the pads on, then let's see what happens.
From Sean Stewart 63, buy, sell, hold. With Notre Dame being a significant player in the history of college football, buy, sell, hold their significant impacts by most impactful. Being snubbed by Michigan into joining the Big Ten and forced to play a national schedule, beating Army with the forward pass with Rockne, or being the only school to have an exclusive TV contract with NBC.
Honestly, I'd buy, sell, hold them in the order that you gave them because I think those are foundational.
Yeah.
I think those things build on each other. I think Notre Dame being left out of the Big Ten and having to play the national schedule led to the great games, which, like with, the Army win with the forward pass. I still think that was a very low scoring game. So let's not act like, who was it? Was it Bill? Who was the quarter? It wasn't Bill Shakespeare, was it? No, he came later. When did Bill Shakespeare play at Notre Dame? But that's like, you talk about the lore of Notre Dame, right? I mean, they had a guy named flipping Bill Shakespeare at Notre Dame. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, only at Notre Dame. But he didn't play. I don't think. Yeah, he played for Newt. Yeah, was he the guy that played in the Army game? I could be wrong. But anyway, yeah, I think so. But I think he was actually, now that I think. But I have to go back and look at it. But anyway, no, he went by Bill Shakespeare. That's what he went by. But anyway, Trev, I think they all led to the thing. And then obviously Notre Dame with the TV contract was one of the many things that kicked off the era that we're in now. But yeah, but it was the first two things that led to Notre Dame being in a position to where they were even going to get a TV contract.
Yeah. Yeah, we have the same order there, especially with Michigan. My buy is Michigan forcing Notre Dame out of the Big Ten, or not allowing them into the Big Ten, playing a big role in that, because that is what made the Notre Dame that we know right now, on June 15th, 2026.
Yep. Good one.
From BD's Lonely Mountain Dew Cup, buy, sell, hold.
Filled with tea now.
There we go. If Abraham Cisse does commit, between him, Jackson Vaughn, Rodney Dunham, and Ebenezer Utade, one of them will break Foskey's all-time sack record of 26.5.
I'll buy it as a possibility. I think they're all talented enough to become that kind of player, especially if one of them stays 4 years, which, we'll see. I think Jackson Vaughn's probably the most likely to stay 4 years because he's actually getting an earlier start. His fourth year will be the third for everybody else from a, age standpoint. But I'll buy it from a possibility standpoint. But the reason that I don't buy it with a lot of certainty is because of all the guys you mentioned. And you didn't even mention like Aiden O'Neal. So like the fact that there's so many good players could tamp down the overall numbers. Like, you could have each year the lead guy gets 8.5. The next year, the next guy gets 7. The next guy gets 6.5, and the next guy gets 6, and they lead the nation in sacks with nobody getting more than 8.5. Well, 8.5 over a 3-year period, even if you average that, gets you to what, 25.5? Am I doing the math correctly on that one, Trev? So you don't get to his record, and that's assuming you do that for 3 years. Sometimes you could be good enough to break the record, but when you play on a team that's got 3 to 4, 5 really good pass rushers, then you're going to have Elijah Golden up the middle. You're going to have, Christopher Burgess up the middle. You're going to have linebackers to get it after the quarterback. It's going to make it harder to kind of get that kind of number. And so, yeah. And by the way, the all-time sack record he's referring to is for the career. Isaiah Foskey's career record was 26.5. And that's going to be the challenge, is when you've got that many great pass rushers, can one stay long enough and do it consistently? Now, if you were to tell me that they're all going to be 4-year players, I'm like, yeah, I think somebody's going to have like a, because now in 4 years, you only have to average 6.5 to break that record over 4 years. And that's when that 10-11 sack season can boost you up a little bit. But I think the fact that all of them are that way is why you may not see any of them necessarily have kind of those dominant, those dominant years. That's just my thought. What do you say, Trev?
Yeah, I buy that odds are one of them has a good chance to. But I mean, there's a player on this list that I'm already looking at, like Rodney Dunham. I don't think he's going to be a 4-year player at Notre Dame, and he's going to play as a true freshman. So unless he's hot out the gate and has back-to-back 11 sack seasons in what would that be, 27 and 28, and he gets 5 this year as a true freshman, I just don't know about that. That's a tough ask. But yeah, it's odds are somebody will have an opportunity for it.
It's just there's too many somebodies that have an opportunity for it. That's my concern, Trev. That's where I have a little bit of hesitancy.
Yeah,
is that there's too many somebodies. I mean, you look at like Texas Tech last year, right? I mean, and David, hey, that's you had 2 guys that had over 10 sacks last year. Yeah, but the next guy had 4.5, the next guy had 3, the next guy had 2.5. If Notre Dame had the same number of sacks, it's going to be dispersed a little bit more evenly. And that's what's going to make it a challenge.
Without a doubt. Here's my takeaway from this conversation. There's 4 players that we're talking about that could have a chance to do this. There was not that long ago. It's like maybe if this one guy pans out the way that we think, maybe. Now there's 4 guys. It's like one of them might, but they all might not, because they'll all each have 24 career sacks at the end of their time at Notre Dame. It's reasons like that where I think they're always going to be consistently a favorite to win the title on FanDuel because of players like this coming through.
Trev, it reminds me a lot of the 2016 defensive end class that had 4 legit NFL players in it. And again, we're not even talking about Aiden O'Neal at this point in time. But you remember the 2018 class had 4 signees at defensive end that got drafted in the 5th round or higher: Julian Aguara, Khalid Kareem, Dalen Hayes, and Adi Takumbo-Gandiji. And so you look at 2018, and Aguara had 8 sacks, and Kareem had 4.5, Dalen had 2, Adi had 1.5. Then you go to 2019, when it was their second full year together, and Khalid had 5.5, Adi had 4.5, Julian had 4, Dalen had 1. You had 5.5 from Owusu Koramoah, 4.5 from Jameer Jones, who also played in the NFL and was part of that class. So like you had 4 guys that played in the NFL, and only once did any of those guys have more than 7 sacks. And then the last year, Adi had 7, Isaiah Foskey had 4.5, Dalen Hayes had 3. Now, I would argue that these guys have better upsides as pass rushers, but I'm making the point that Notre Dame was pretty darn good at getting after the quarterback back then. And your leader in sacks had 8 in that stretch. So when you have that many good pass rushers, it's hard for one guy to dominate the sacks. That's the point. But I agree with you. I think with that many guys that have the potential, they could tamp each other down, but also it also increases the odds that one of them just becomes that dude. I know there's a lot of other good players, but I'm still that dude.
From Irish Hawkeye, buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame will have at least 4 running backs with at least 50 carries in the regular season.
Barring injury, I'm going to sell. I'm going to sell. Barring injury, I'm going to sell.
Yeah, that'd be very difficult to do. I mean, the last time they came close was 2022 when Audric Logan and Chris Tyree all had over like 100, or Chris Tyree might have been like at 100 carries. But 4 running backs over 50 would be very tough. I mean, in 24, Aeneas Williams as the primary third down running back for the majority of the season, I think still only finished with like 34 carries. 4 running backs with at least 50 would be very tough to do. I think that they will be more by committee this year. I don't know if it'll be that much by committee. That would be difficult.
Yeah, and if Dylan McCullough was the running backs coach, and this is not a knock on J1 Sider. I'm not trying to have a who's better conversation. I think they're both really good coaches. The point is, Thielen has a longer track record of playing more guys. That's what I mean by that. And you look at but even then, Aeneas had 34 carries, Kedron had 21. Now, okay, that Riley Leonard had 184. Fair. But you look at 2022, I think that's probably the best example. Audric had 210, Jeremiah had 71, Jadarian had 47, and Jabron had 45. Well, Jabron was the third down back. Like, I don't see, barring injury, J1 Sider being someone who's going to play 4 running backs the way that Dylan McCullough did in 2023. I still see it. Now, you could say, okay, but even if you take that same number of carries, Audric's not the number one this year won't have 210. You won't be that lead back like Audric was. But does that get dispersed to number 2 and number 3, or does it get dispersed to number 2, number 3, and number 4? I think that's the question. That makes it a little bit tougher. I don't think this is an absurd submission. I think this is actually a pretty good submission, Trevor. And I think 50 was a good number. And we've had a year where one guy was 5 carries away and the other guy was 3 carries away from making that happen. The thing that also helps this year compared to other years is you don't have a running quarterback on this roster. So those carries will go to running back. So I think it's possible, but I'm going to sell that because I just don't know that, because then the counter to the 23 is I think Notre Dame will be a better passing team this year than they were in 23. I think that factors in as well.
Agreed. From Joe Alt Superfan, in 2026, we will see the Wisconsin Badgers get beat convincingly by Notre Dame and also keep up the old age tradition of Lincoln Riley not being able to handle Midwestern teams in the Big Ten country. Calling it now, the Badgers beat the Trojans in Camp Randall.
Ooh, I like that. I'll buy that. I'll buy that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll buy that.
That is also...
That's leaving that right up. That's right up Lincoln Riley's wheelhouse, as the OP said, as Joe Walt Superfan said.
If Wisconsin and Luke Fickell can get back to the Wisconsin Badgers identity of establishing the line of scrimmage and being dominant in the trenches, I absolutely see this happening. Lincoln Riley teams do not like getting hit. Just don't.
It's because their head coach doesn't like getting punched in the mouth, figuratively, much less his team liking it physically.
Yeah. Another one from Joe Alt Superfan. You would buy USC season tickets if it meant you could watch Jeremiah Love and Price run behind an offensive line that consisted of Joe Alt, Quentin Nelson, Mike McGlinchey, Zach Martin, and Jeff Fain.
Meaning just getting to watch it once, so I buy season tickets so I can attend that one Notre Dame game? Absolutely. Because then I would sell all the other tickets of games I didn't want to attend, make my money back, and do that. But that'd be pretty miserable because that would mean I live in California and live in LA. So that's a hard pass. But yeah, I would 100% buy season tickets to USC if it meant I could watch those two guys run behind that offensive line. Plus, not just that, but that's also going to be at least a 40-point beatdown. At least. And I don't care what USC team you put on the field. Like, if you have that offensive line with those running backs, are you kidding me? There's another question similar to this. I was going to say something. I'm going to wait till we get to that other submission.
This one's difficult because I would love to watch that in person, but there's no part of me that wants to give any dollar amount to USC's football program. So I'm going to sell it. I would have just as much enjoyment watching it from my couch. I would. I would love to go to the Coliseum if in any way, shape, or form that money doesn't go back to USC's football program. I just can't support it in any way, even if it means watching Notre Dame beat them down. And then buy, sell, hold. Joe Ott will automize the Arizona Cardinal defensive line on September 13th.
That's a you question, Trev. That's an NFL deal.
If he's healthy, I'll buy it for you, Joe Alt Superfan. I'm also just not too familiar with who the Arizona Cardinals even have on their defensive line. So by default, I will buy it. From Shard, buy, sell, hold. Follow up the 80s wrestlers question. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, and The Undertaker.
Oh. This is a much more difficult one than the one we talked about the other day. Because the one we talked about the other day, there was no debate who was the bigger star. It was Hulk Hogan. There's no question. And there was also no debate on who was the better wrestler. That was Randy Macho Man Savage. I mean, that just like as far as like just the skill, the technical wrestling. And there was one guy that was just clearly not in the same league, and that was Ultimate Warrior. That was a pure Vince McMahon push. He had no business being in the conversation. This is 3 legends. This is 3 guys that were great in the sport. And the fact that they came along at the same time is what made that Attitude Era so good. Of the three, this is a tough one. I mean, look, nobody was bigger when they were big than Stone Cold Steve Austin. Like, when he was big, his big was bigger than The Rock's big, and The Undertaker's big. The problem is his big wasn't nearly as long-lasting as The Rock and Undertaker's because of injuries. I mean, he kind of had to step away in his prime because of all the injuries he had. So, man, this is a tough one. Oh, man. So I'll just go with who I like the most. I'll buy Stone Cold. I'll hold The Rock. I'll sell The Undertaker. Undertaker was a great showman, but like his style of wrestling was not necessarily like my cup of tea. He just wasn't the athlete, in my opinion, those other guys were. He's a pretty good athlete for his size, but it just, and he was also, he had some years where he was a great wrestler in the era where I just hated the WWF. It was in that gimmicky era where you had like Doink the Clown, and he was the dead man, and he, the casket. And then he eventually became like a real, person, the American, all that. But Stone Cold, when he was hot, was, it was a supernova. Now, the counter argument could be to Trev yeah, but part of him being hot was that he had The Rock to play off of. And I think the two of them helped each other a lot. I think they're a lot like Bird Magic. Is Bird? Do we really know Bird the way we do now, Larry Bird, if not for Magic? And do we really know Magic the way that we do now if it wasn't for the rivalry with Bird? Sometimes just two great things go together. And I think The Rock and Stone Cold, that time together where they were kind of rivals, and then sometimes they weren't. It was like you're watching. It was weird too, because they tried so hard to make The Rock a heel, but the crowd just loved him. And they were like both. They did the same thing with Stone Cold. Every time they try to make him a heel, the crowd is like, nope, we're not letting you. You know what I mean? They were both great showmen. And you listen to stories of wrestlers talk about, like, I've heard the Big Show talk about they were in a match one time and how Stone Cold is, doing different things to try to help the Big Show look better and to not put him over, because the Stone Cold still won the match, but like, they were great showmen. But like The Rock, listen to the story about when The Rock wrestled Hogan, and it was going to be Hogan was the heel and The Rock was, because it was still NWO Hogan, and The Rock was the baby face. And apparently, like, at the very beginning, like, Hogan got a big pop, and The Rock was immediately like, okay, we're going to lean into this, and we're going to do this quick about face. And it's actually going to be, I'm going to still win, but we're going to make Hogan look good. We're going to put him over in one of these final legendary matches. That takes a great showman. And he's not much of an actor, in my opinion. And I don't know that. Well, actually, there's some movies where he's pretty good, but like as a wrestler, he's one of the greatest performers we've ever seen. He's the greatest showman of the three, in my opinion. But I think Stone Cold was to me just like just a little bit more famous, a little bit. A little bit more popular as a wrestler, and just, I don't know, just carried that era just a little bit more. There's a lot of wasted time with The Rock when he was with the Nation. And all that. And he, just they wasted Rock for a while before he really got over, where Stone Cold kind of hit pretty early when he came over from WCW, I think. As soon as he turned into, the Texas Rattlesnake and away from whatever they were trying to do with WCW and all that, he was pretty huge. But man, they were all great. I mean, there's no wrong answer here. I could spend the next 15 minutes saying, wait a minute now, but what about The Undertaker? They were all great. And watching them go against each other was a lot of fun. But I think the other big thing too is I think Stone Cold, I think the stunner was such a better move than the rock bottom and the people's elbow and the tombstone and all that and the choke slam, because it was one of those ones where you could just catch it at any time. And it was a better finishing move than the rock bottom. Like the rock bottom was like, dude, that's not you knocked my lights out kind of move. Like, even though it's all fake, like, you know what I mean? Like the rock bottom, like, is that really like I'm out, I'm going to now let you jump over me twice. And then, I don't think so. Or the stunner, it's like, okay, dude, that might put me out for a little bit. But let me say this last thing. Nobody sold the stunner better than The Rock. Nobody. Nobody took a bigger bump on the stunner than The Rock did. He was great at taking at selling the stunners, and that's what made those two so great together.
This is tough because this is the era that I got into wrestling, and I'm buying Stone Cold because he's my favorite wrestler all time. I mean, even if somebody had a good argument for The Rock and The Undertaker, which you would have some very, 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 very compelling arguments for, I'm buying Stone Cold Steve Austin every time. He's my favorite wrestler. I'm with you on finishers, especially. Like the rock bottom is fine. The people's elbow is one that I think that is the most overrated finisher in all of this.
Yes.
I'm sorry. It's just
It's like a lame version of Hulk Hogan's leg drop. It's not even like
Yeah.
that. You know, it's like, yes, agree.
Yeah, I think the people's elbow is very overrated. I'm sure I'll get some hate
But
for it, but
that's why I say he's a great showman because he sells it. I mean, it was a,
Yes.
but yes, it was not a great finishing move. I agree.
but I'm still going to hold The Rock and sell The Undertaker. The biggest separator for me, and I know it was a part of his gimmick and, being the dead man and, he's a man of very few words, but The Rock was so much better on the mic than what The Undertaker was that that's the separator for me. And then Stone Cold, in my opinion, was the best of the three on the mic, but it is very close between Stone Cold and The Rock. They were both fantastic. But yeah, that's my order, and it's very close. We're rolling here on the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And we have the buy sell hold going on today. Getting us kicked off here in this part, we have Double R 2.0. Buy sell hold. Notre Dame has to flip a recruit to meet their wants in the recruiting class, not needs.
So, unless something happens that I don't anticipate happening over the next couple weeks, I don't think they'll have to flip anyone to meet a need. They don't need a fifth DB, for example. They want a fifth DB, right? I understand that. But I don't think they want it so bad that if they don't get one, it's like somehow like not a deal. And I think what you might see there is they evaluate some kid that hasn't committed anywhere that they like and try to get him there. I think it's more likely that they get someone that they just evaluate as a senior year, like a senior year breakout, more than a flip. Now, as I said, if something dramatic happens, and let's say one of the linebackers we think they're going to get, again, let's go back to the hypothetical class. Let's just say they get Caden Henderson and Roman Igwe-Buikwe, then you're good there. But if you miss on one of those two guys, you're going to have to flip someone to get a want and a need. It's kind of the same. So no, I don't think that they're going to need to flip anybody to get their wants. They might have to flip somebody to get a need, but not a want.
Then the 2028 cycle need is 3 wide receivers.
Hold. I can't know that until I see who breaks out this year, who transfers after this year. There's a lot of things I would need to know. It could end up being 2 again. It could end up being 4. It could be 3. I think 3 is the most reasonable number that I could go with right now. So I think that's where Double R has a fair thing. But I can't give the answer any kind of certainty until I know how this year pans out. It's hard.
No, that's fair. And then I'll change the wording of this one a little bit to make it more like a buy, sell, hold. So here's the premise. Chicago recruiting is as important as some make it out to be. Buy one, sell one, hold one. It's a need, it's a want by fans, or it's a bonus because of national recruiting.
Is it a need? Buy that it's a need. When Chicago's good, you've got to recruit well there. Here's the thing. What some people miss in this debate is so we go get a similar player somewhere else. Yeah, you can get a similar player somewhere else, but where can you get a similar player that's an hour and a half away that can be here every single time a good recruit's on campus? That can be at every home game. Remember how much Drake Bone was around in 2023? Remember how much CJ Carr was around in 2024?
Oh, yeah.
Helping to recruit. Why? Because they were both within driving distance of any time a kid was on campus. If your best player, let's just say that Notre Dame's best recruit in the 2027 class, let's say, I'm trying to think here. Let's say that Caden Henderson's your only 5-star commit, and let's say he committed 3 months ago. How many times do you think Caden Henderson's going to be up on campus during a visit? Whereas David Fuller-Runshow, who's from Chicago, I promise you will be on campus a lot between now and the end of the year when they have recruits on campus. He was on campus this weekend doing a great job of selling Notre Dame to the kids that were on campus. So I think there's a lot of value to having a big time player that's from local, whether it's Chicago or Andran. I think when you also talk about the need, it's a need when there's good players there. There's going to be years where I'm okay Notre Dame not really taking anyone from Chicago or nobody big from Chicago because it doesn't always have big time players. But when there's big time players there, it's important. I think if you're getting the right kind of kid, there's also a support system that's going to be better for him. He's not as far away from home. He's not going to be as upset, being home. He can go home on a weekend. I remember the first time I went away to college, I was about a 4.5 hour drive away from home. And it was nice knowing that, hey, I'm away from home, but if I, miss my mom's cooking or I don't feel like doing laundry and I want my mom to help me with that, or if I want to do it using my parents' thing and not pay, whatever the reason why, I could, by dinner on a Friday after class, I could be home, by dinner on a Friday. Long drive, I'd be tired, but I could do it. Whereas if I was going to school at California or something like that, I'm not driving home ever. I got to fly home, and that's not going to happen. So I think there's a lot of those advantages to it. Is it a want by fans? Of course it's a want by fans. I'm going to buy that, especially older fans that remember all the great players that we got out of Chicago over the years. And is it a bonus because of national recruiting? No, it's not a bonus because of national recruiting, because it's not always a given that you're going to be able to fill all of your needs with national recruits every year. Again, I repeat, there's a lot of advantages to some of your best players being local and some of the leaders of your class being local.
For sure. Then the biggest recruiting disappointment outside of Josh Brajas. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Justin Brent, Shane Simon, Max Redfield.
I'm going to buy Shane Simon. I thought Shane Simon was going to be a really good player. He was very athletic. He had a lot of talent. I did not see, and I did not see the lack of football IQ on film. I did not see the lack of a willingness to mix it up on film. There were some things about his personality that I think made him not as good as his brother. Cody was a lot tougher and a lot mentally tougher, and Shane just didn't handle certain things well, which is why he was also not very good at Pitt. But that's one where I say I thought he was going to be very good. I'm going to hold Justin Brent because I wasn't very high on Justin Brent. So he was a great athlete, but I never thought he was like a great talent. And I'm going to sell Max Redfield because, Max Redfield was not the player we hoped he could be. Max Redfield was still a pretty good football player at Notre Dame. He had a disappointing end to his career, but Max Redfield was a starting safety for 2 years at Notre Dame, and he was a good player. He wasn't the 5-star we all hoped he would be, but he was. To put him and Shane Simon in the same league as football players I just can't do that. I can't even. Max Redfield had back-to-back years where he had over 60 tackles for Notre Dame, and was a starter on defense for them. He was way better than Shane Simon. So I can't even. You talk about disappointments. I can't even come close to putting him on the same level as Shane Simon. He was still a good football player, Trev. You know what I mean? Like Max was a good football player at Notre Dame.
The levels of disappointment are different. If you're a 5-star, but you perform more like a 4-star player, I don't view that as a disappointment. Was he the first round NFL draft pick and a unanimous All-American like what Xavier Watts was based off of his recruiting rankings? No, but I don't know if I'd hesitate to use the word disappointment. But I'm with you. We have the exact same order. Then the most talented Indiana linebackers out of high school. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Josh Brajas, Drake Bowen, Jack Kaiser.
So if we're going to go physical talent, I'm going to buy Drake Bowen. I'm going to hold Josh Brajas. And I'm going to sell Jack Kaiser. The problem for Jack is Jack might be the best all-around athlete, but the pound for pound, Drake is a much bigger, stronger, more explosive athlete. And Josh Brajas was the most physically ready of the group, but he was not as athletic as Drake. Josh had the higher floor, I thought at the time, but I would have said Drake had a higher ceiling. And Jack's thing is Jack just lacked the size, and yet still was a 4th-round NFL draft pick because he was a very good athlete.
Yeah.
But it's like, so's Drake, but Drake's bigger and stronger. That's where. But those are all 3 really good high school football players. Still, Barajas' biggest disappointment ever. He was a really good high school player. And it's like, say I missed him. I definitely missed him because he wasn't very good. But I don't think I got the talent wrong. I think I rated him a little too high. Again, I was just kind of getting into the rankings business, and rankings were more favorable back then. I would not have ranked him as a 5-star now, not even with what I know, if just how I grade now and being more critical and less of a fan of the team and just saying, hey, look, here it is what it is. He would have still been a top 100 player though, easily. And he went to the Army All-American game and had a great week and played very well in the game. He didn't want to work when he got to college. Just didn't want to work.
That's unfortunate.
And somebody said it's also criminal not to have Jalen Smith on this list. I disagree with that, Tristan, because by leaving Jalen out, you actually make it an answer we can discuss. It's not always helpful in a buy-sell hold to put the most obvious answer on there. Like, who's the greatest shooting guard in Chicago Bulls history? Michael Jordan or anyone? Well, I mean, duh. It's not even a conversation anymore. We're not even able to have a conversation. I think the guy that I would have put in there instead of Jalen would have been Drew Tranquil. That's who I would have maybe considered on there. But if you put Jalen Smith on there, it's like, okay, dude, like who's the greatest number, who's the greatest, Boston Celtic to wear a number in the 30s? Well, okay. Duh. Like, give me something like other than Larry Bird, who's the greatest. That's the kind of thing that's a little bit more debatable. If you put Jalen in there, it's like it's okay. We've moved on from this answer 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
So that's why I actually like not having Jalen on this one.
Makes sense. From Domer since birth, as high school prospects, buy one, sell one, hold one, Manti Te'o, Jalen Smith, Caden Henderson.
This is unfair because we haven't seen Caden as a senior yet. But man, this is a tough one because these are 3 elite prospects. I'll buy Jalen because he was the most talented athlete I've seen. I'll buy him as the best prospect. Manti was the better high school player. Manti might be the best high school linebacker I've ever seen. Like he literally might be the best high school linebacker I've ever seen. Now, his game also projected, but you always knew he wasn't an elite athlete. He was a very good athlete, but not an elite. He was a very good athlete for how the game was at the time. But he was not an elite athlete compared to like Jalen Smith. So Jalen was the more talented prospect. He was always the higher ceiling guy. And that's why I put him number 1. I'll sell Caden Henderson for now because, again, there's just not the body of work yet that those other 3 guys have. Caden has an opportunity with a dominant senior year to jump into this conversation a little bit more.
And then of these 3 major sporting events, buy one, sell one, hold one, the college baseball World Series, the NCAA tournament men's Final Four or women's Final Four, and then the college wrestling tournament weekend.
What's your thoughts on this one, Trev? This one's a kind of an easy one for me because I don't watch one of those for sure. Let me hear your thoughts.
I'm buying the Final Four. I'm holding the college baseball World Series, and I'm selling the college wrestling tournament weekend. For me, I just don't watch college wrestling.
Same. I've never watched the wrestling tournament. I will occasionally watch the World Series, College World Series. Not always. I watched a lot more when I was younger. I will always watch the Final Four, almost always, not always, almost always. It's a bigger event, and it's also easier to watch because it's 3 games, where the College World Series is more.
Well, and between the 3, I know the least about wrestling. Like, I don't have to watch baseball all year, and I can tune into a baseball game, and I know what's happening. I mean, basketball's I watch that the most out of any sport besides football. It would be hard for me to turn on college wrestling because I just wouldn't know. I wouldn't understand point system. I don't understand the strategy that goes into it. And for everybody that I know that enjoys college wrestling, they think it's fascinating. I just haven't taken the time to do it.
I have a great deal of respect for wrestling. I know how hard those guys train. It's a very skilled sport. It's just not one that interests me. You know what I mean? Like, you can respect something and not really have interest in watching it or learning about it. And that's kind of how I feel. If I was going to learn about a sport I didn't know a lot about, I'd pick lacrosse and hockey over wrestling, while still maintaining a great deal of respect for wrestlers.
For sure. As far as the basketball Final Four goes, though, on FanDuel, Notre Dame's women's team has the 7th highest odds to win the entire thing next season. We'll see if they can pull it all together, but I just went and looked.
I think they're going to be really good. I like their 2 portal pickups. The freshman class is legit. Yeah. I have a feeling it's going to be a fun year. I hope.
From Domerson's birth, you would not trade Notre Dame's class with any other team, regardless of ranking, if Notre Dame maintains current commitments while closing and signing 4 out of the 6 of Julius Jones, Caden Henderson, Abraham Cisse, Braden Parks, Albert Simeon, and Roman Igwe-Buikwe.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've said I would never trade Notre Dame's class. I want to go with the kids that pick Notre Dame, but I think that if you get 4 of those 6, so let's say they get Jones, Henderson, Cisse, and Parks. Don't get Simeon and Igwe-Buikwe. Just because, again, he says 4 of the 6. I think they have a shot to get all 6 of those guys. But just for argument's sake. I think only Texas A&M finishes with a class that's comparable to Notre Dame's. I think that's it. Would I trade A&M's class for Notre Dame's? No, because those kids chose to go to A&M and these kids chose to go to Notre Dame, and I'm always going to choose the kids to choose to go to Notre Dame. But I think those will be the 2 best classes.
From BK's publicist, buy, sell, hold. Even though he wasn't an early enrollee and he is a true freshman, Ian Premer will have a different role than all other tight ends due to his unique skill set, set, and frame. He will have a solid and important role in the passing game this year, possibly leading all tight ends in receiving, playing outside like Mayer and Eifert did.
If he's healthy, I buy that. I think Ian Premer is going to be very hard to keep off the field. And I love the aspect of where he's going with this. I think this is a great observation by BK's publicist. He's not saying he's like necessarily more talented than James Flanagan or Cooper Flanagan. He's saying he's more unique. He's a different type of player. Unique skill set and frame. I think that's spot on. I'll buy that. I'm
buying that as well. Right now, Notre Dame's tight end room is made up of guys who have, as of right now, higher ceilings as blocking tight ends than they do receiving tight ends. And the guy who has the highest ceiling on paper is a receiving tight end, and Jack Larson has yet to make his presence felt. So Ian Premer is walking into a situation where he absolutely has a path to make it onto the field very early.
Trev, I'm gonna read this next one from Black Irish 864 because I'm gonna get your thoughts on this first. I wrote an article about this the other day, but Black Irish says 864 says buy, sell, hold. Jason Onye's breakout season, so projecting a breakout season, elevates the Notre Dame defense to elite status.
Buy, especially if he starts to make his presence felt as a pass rusher as well. I have all the confidence in the world that Notre Dame is going to repeat and have an elite run defense this year. Very confident that Notre Dame is going to have a very aggressive pass rush at defensive end, a successful pass rush at defensive end this year. But along the interior, you have guys like Tion Gray, Sean Sevillano, Elijah Hughes, Armel Mukum, guys who have a lot of potential to make their impact felt. But Jason Onye being granted a 6-year of eligibility and being able to come back to this defense, I think would put this team over the top. He could have a very similar impact to what Riley Mills did in 2024, a similar impact to what Jerron Jones had in 2016, where he had like double-digit tackles for a loss and 5 to 6 sacks. I mean, that's what's in front of Onye. Now it's just about staying on the field one way or another, whether it's health-related, whether it's off-the-field related, because we've seen bits and pieces from Jason Onye of like through the first 4 games, he was Notre Dame's this. Last year it was, hey, final 4 to 5 to 6 games, he was this for Notre Dame's interior. Now let's put it together for a 12, 13, 14, 15 game season. But yes, short answer, Black Irish, I buy this. From Powell, JD4, Buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame lands 80% of the uncommitted prospects making official visits in June. You're muted.
See, when I'm looking at another page, I don't get to see this. They have 9 kids visiting in June. Same number as last year. Last year, they got 8 out of the 9. The one kid they didn't get was a kid that they told didn't have a room anymore because they got a commitment from Ian Premer and Preston Frizel, who visited officially. Had 3 tight ends visiting. They were only going to take 2. This year, you're going to have 9. You're going to have Abraham Cisse, Braden Parks, Tyler Alexander, Roman Igwe, and Greedy James visited this past weekend. Actually, I think it might be 8. And then this weekend, you're going to have Julius Jones, Albert Simeon, 9, Sagon Alexander, and Caden Henderson. So here's what this is going to all boil down to, Trev. This is all going to boil down to whether or not Sagan Alexander actually makes his visit this weekend, which is going to be it's going to be determined by a couple things. Of that group, so of the 5 that visited this past weekend and the 4 they're going to visit this next weekend, I think Notre Dame gets 6, which as of right now would be 67%. If Sagan Alexander doesn't commit, I think they get 6 of 8, which is 75%. So then they would need like one other player to decide that he's going to come. Or if you you just would need one more to come. So I guess, I'm selling that because I don't think they're going to get more than 6 as of now. But depending on, who visits and other things like that, it might change things a little bit. That's what I'll go with. So I think they'll get 6 out of the 8 that are going to visit right now. 6 of the 9 they're going to visit as of right now.
Good deal. From Grubbing Up Heisman, Oklahoma makes the national title game.
I'm going to sell. I don't think that Oklahoma is going to be that good this year, Trev, but I could see Oklahoma making a run to the semis this year. They would need the right draw. That's with a lot of teams. They would need the right draw, but I think semis is probably the furthest they're going to be able to get. They're good, but I don't think they're that good.
Yeah, I'm selling that as well. It's not impossible, but they would need one of Notre Dame, Texas, Oregon, Ohio State, Miami, like a combination of some of those teams to be upset ahead of them, because those are rosters right now where I believe top to bottom have more overall talent. But Oklahoma has the roster makeup of a very good defense coming back. I like the back end of their defense. They have the style of quarterback that's geared to make a run if he's able to stay healthy all year. I like a lot of what they bring back. Very underrated wide receiving core. So they have bits and pieces of it, but they would need a couple of those teams to fall off somewhere in the playoff. They would need a favorable draw, to your point. So selling it right now, but I wouldn't be beside myself if they did. So that's where I'm at.
Agree.
Then the defense and offense will lead the nation in yards per play.
I'm going to buy the offense. I'm going to sell the defense, though. They're not that far off, Trev. I mean, they were 9th last year. They were about 0.7 behind Ohio State or behind Texas Tech. The reason I'm going to sell is not that they may not be, even if Notre Dame's the best defense in college football, it doesn't mean that they're going to have the lowest yards per play. And the reason that I kind of vote against it is because I think the quality of the offenses they're going to play is going to be better than some other places. That's kind of where I'm at. So, Trev, take the next couple. I'll be right back.
Yeah, as far as the defense goes, I also think that their style of play will also dictate a lot of that. I need to see Chris Ash be able to develop more of an aggressive game plan and not give up some of like the easy underneath stuff. That's how I view that one. Offense, I think, is more than capable of leading the nation in yards per play, but I'm selling because I don't think it'll be both the offense and the defense. I have some questions about the defense. It doesn't mean I think they're going to be bad. That doesn't mean because I don't think they're going to lead the nation that they'll be 50th. But there's just some things that I need to see from Chris Ash philosophically before I'm willing to say that they'll lead the nation in yards per play allowed. Then another one from Grubbing Up Heisman. Buy, sell, hold. This has been the longest offseason ever. This will probably be unpopular amongst the fan base. This is a sell for me. This offseason's actually kind of flown by. Some of it is because of like outside of work stuff. Lauren and I are already rounding the turn to third, getting into the third trimester next week, which is just crazy. Then Brian and I sat down and did our game plan for basically the rest of summer. And it was like, we do X amount of shows and we knock all this stuff out. And then we're basically prepping for game week. So it's crazy. From Irish Hawkeye, buy, sell, hold. The new position coaches on defense have shown their recruiting chops, and you are not concerned with their ability to recruit at the level Notre Dame needs and expects to win a championship.
I'm going to hold on that because as of right now, there are no public commitments for Brian Jean-Marie, and Aaron Henry has yet to land a corner. Now, why has he failed to land a corner? Well, he walked into a situation where they only had 2 top 100 corners committed.
Right.
It's not that he can't. It's just incomplete. We haven't seen them go through a whole recruiting cycle. I think the coach who's probably had the most success so far is Charlie Partridge. I think he's proven it, but he still has work to do. I mean, are they going to get a second defensive tackle? I think things are going in a good direction, but there's still a lot to be determined by that. Abraham Cisse, we like where they're at, but he hasn't committed yet. I mean, so there's a lot of good things. Jackson Vaughn, he did a great job with, but I mean, let's be honest. You were going to get Jackson Vaughn unless you screwed it up. So I love where it's trending, but like they haven't even finished their first full cycle yet. Brian Jean-Marie doesn't even have a commitment yet. Since he's been hired, they've had 1 decommitment and that's it. Now, there's a lot more to that. That's a spin-ish type of comment. I think he's doing a great job so far, but let's wait till he gets a public commitment first. So I think those are things that I look at, Trevor, and I say that's why I'm not ready to go there yet with declaring them ready to do that. It's yes, finish this class off next, but let's see what they do in 2028 when they get a full off season of recruiting under their belts. So I'll say this: so far so good, but I can't buy it because they haven't signed a single person, and one of the coaches has failed to get a public commitment yet, and another one has yet to get a position at a kid to publicly committed a pretty important position. We know that he's great at, Aaron Henry's great at keeping top 100 players that were already committed, and he got 2 good DBs that can play safety and nickel, but there's just other things that have to factor in. So I know we want to get excited about it, but let's let the process play out first. Then we can have some conversations about who is or isn't this or that. Like some fun questions about how this class will stack up but maybe we wait till those guys actually commit publicly before we kind of go too far down this road. And it's okay for us to be a little bit patient. We got the rest of June, all of July. We have plenty of time to talk about this stuff once these guys are publicly committed. Because again, until you publicly commit, some people are like, I'm reading between the lines. Yeah, I'm not hiding it. There are guys that there's dancing gifts that haven't been made public yet. Guys, there are guys that have silently committed to Notre Dame. But I've seen guys silently commit to Notre Dame, visit other schools, and not end up at Notre Dame. That's why I say it doesn't really matter to me yet. Until a kid publicly commits, it doesn't mean as much. That's why. So I'm not trying to be slick with it. I'm saying, like, look, until they actually do this, then it doesn't mean a whole lot. So let's let the process play out for a couple weeks before we start making these kind of things. Let's actually let one of the position coaches actually get a public commitment before we anoint this staff as good enough to win a title. But I'm okay saying so far so good. For sure. So far so good.
Agreed. I'm selling it, but it's more so like if I was a teacher, it's marking the grade as incomplete. Like there's just things that have to be done.
You've handed in your rough draft of your final term paper. And so far, boy, this has got the makings of a really good paper, but let me, let's clean this up. Let's correct that. Let's do this. And boy, then it's really going to be something. It's a good reference, Trev. I like that.
Hey, thanks, man.
every now, we do a 3-hour show. That's why we do the long shows. Like, the longer we go, we got a better shot that Trev has of getting some zinger in there, some really good comment in there, just try to make it good for him.
On the shows that we go like 4.5 hours, it's just because I haven't said anything worth its salt yet. Like that's really what we're just kind of fishing for.
Like, that was an odd compliment. Almost kind of seemed like he was kind of insulting me a little bit there. All in love, my friend. All in love.
From touchdown car bomb 3, buy, sell, hold. Notre Dame has a top 5 class for the next 3 years in a row.
In some way, shape, form, or fashion, they'll have a top 5 class. Yes. And the reason I say that is there may be some years where they don't rank in the top 5 because they only signed 20 guys. Because they had 2 great classes in a row and the retention has been great. They had a good portal class and they don't need a whole lot. And they only get 20. Well, they're not going to rank in the top 5 in overall points, but they may rank in the top 5 in, per player average, or nobody met their needs better and they have more impact players. They just don't have as many guys. And then that may rank them outside top 5. But it'd be one of those, but no class did a better job of meeting their needs with impact players. It's just they signed 20 and USC signed 41. Or, something like that. Like that. But yeah, in some way evaluate classes, I'll buy that they'll be top 5 for the next 3 years.
Then if Marcus Freeman were to leave within the next 5 years, the next hire at head coach would be one from his staffs from 2022 to present.
So I don't know anyone from his staff other than like he leaves at a weird time and Mike Denbrock takes over that I would say would be qualified to be the head football coach of Notre Dame. Guys that maybe this guy could be coordinator, but like, who would be that guy? Who'd be, the only guy that I could even think of who that would be is one that no one's going to like because he's currently coaching in the NFL and he has for some reason doesn't get a lot of love from Notre Dame fans. But let's be real. Tommy Rees is the only guy that would even remotely be considered as head coach other than maybe Mike Denbrock if Freeman left at a weird time.
Yep.
And I don't think Tommy Rees is going to be would be the replacement for Freeman as of right now. Nor do I know that Tommy Rees would necessarily want to come back to college. Because for all we know, in the next 5 years, he might be head football coach in the National Football League. Is he going to leave that to come to college to recruit? I don't think so.
And the only other person on staff that has experience as a head coach in general is Chris Ash.
And Charlie Partridge.
Charlie Partridge. Where was he a head coach at?
Florida Atlantic for 3 years. Yeah. At the Power 4 level, you are correct. And neither of them were very good. They were a combined head coach for a combined 5-6 years, and they both got fired. Not every great position coach or coordinator is meant to be a head coach.
100%. Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't see that. I don't see that happening.
The final 4 teams in the playoffs will be made up of one Big Ten team, one SEC team, Notre Dame, and an ACC team.
I'll buy that. Because I think between Indiana, Ohio State, and Oregon, one of those teams is going to be a semifinal team at least. If not 2. I think Notre Dame is going to be there. I think the committee will all but guarantee that an SEC team makes it again, just like they did last year. And I get Miami as a semifinal team as well. Yeah, I'll buy that. No doubles this year. Which the Big Ten in 2024, you had a Big Ten and ACC, so you had 2 Big Tens last year as well. I keep forgetting Oregon. Yeah, you've had 2 Big Tens the last 2 years. I don't think there'll be a double up again, but if there is a double up, it'll most likely be the Big Ten again.
Yeah, agreed. I think the committee will do its best to try to eliminate the double ups of the Big Ten and probably face 2 Big Ten teams off in the quarterfinals. I could see that. I think this is a very likely scenario, so I'll buy it as well.
It's not going. There we go.
From Moneybag Jake 13, buy, sell, hold. Caden Henderson is the best linebacker since Jalen Smith.
Sell. As of right now, sell. He's close. He might have a shot by the end of his senior year, but as of right now, as a prospect, I'd still probably put Kingston ahead of him.
Yeah, I would too.
But that's based fair. On Kingston's senior year. Caden hasn't had a senior year yet. So let's let him have a senior season first, and then we'll and then we can say, I'll say this. He could have a shot if he can have a big senior year.
The chaos in the linebacker coaching position has actually turned out to be a positive.
I'm going to sell that. I mean, I understand what he's saying because they're going to end up with a great class, but they're going to end up with the class that they should have had at the beginning had they done it right. So I don't think they're going to end up with the class they are going to end up with because of the chaos. Like the chaos somehow put in a series of events that led to this. I think it's more of you're going to still end up with a great linebacker class in spite of the chaos.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. I don't think it'll be because of it. I'm with you. Then as far as play on the field, we just have to wait and see. I like Brian John Marie. And I'm very excited to see what he does at Notre Dame, but I'm not willing yet until they get out onto the field and I can see what the linebacker room is going to do until I'm willing to say it was also, the chaos of going from Max Bullough to Al Washington to Brian John Marie. I got to wait and see. And then Notre Dame will still land a significant safety addition in the 27 class.
I'll buy that. I don't think it's a given, but I think they'll keep their eyes open for some kids that project to play safety either this summer or maybe even into the season. They're not going to get a kid just to get a number. They'll just go to the portal. But I think they're going to keep their eye open for a late bloomer, a kid they evaluate over the summer, early in the season, that type of thing. So I'll buy it as a possibility.
From T-Shop 11, buy, sell, hold. The last time the Knicks won a title was 1973. That year, Eric Parsegian went 11-0. Buy, sell, hold. We're winning the trophy this year.
I'm buying that, but I've already said that I think you're going to win that. It's funny because before I worked with Lou Samoji, I would have been like, dude, bro, come on, man. Like, those two things have nothing to do with each other. But Lou did this thing one time, and I forget what it was. It was something like, it had something to do with horse racing and Notre Dame having a great team. Where every year that this one thing happened in horse, and I can't remember what it was, but every time this one thing happened in a horse racing, that year Notre Dame also had a great team. It was fascinating, like, to see how his mind would work. And I'd be like, dude, I never even have thought of that. Like, first of all, I couldn't even tell you the only name of a great horse I know is Seabiscuit because they made a movie about it. Like, I don't know that. Oh, Seattle Slew, because it's a joke in a Jim Carrey movie. Just because she's been ridden more than Seattle Slew, right? Wasn't that name of a horse, right? Remember that scene in Liar Liar? Those are the only two horses I know. I think, yes, actually, it was something about it. Triple Crown, when there's ever a Triple Crown winner that Notre Dame is like wins a championship or something like that. It was a fascinating statistic that only Lou Samoji could think of. It was that's why I loved working. One of the many reasons I loved working with that guy. But so like, yeah, I'm like, you know what? Like now that he, after working with Lou, I'm like, oh yeah, there kind of is a little bit of this, this correlation type of thing. So yeah, I'll go with that. I'll go with that.
Yeah, I buy it because I also think they're going to win it all this year, regardless of what the Knicks did. Also, for anybody that watched that championship, the San Antonio Spurs have to be the least clutch team in the history of any sport. You had home advantage and a double-digit lead in every single one of the playoff games, and you went 1-4 in those.
You got beaten 5, bro. You had double. So I was on the phone Wednesday night. I think it was Wednesday night, and I was talking to a guy on the show. I was talking to a guy. We were having a real great conversation about the Protect College Sports Act. Learned a ton. It was a great conversation. And I remember getting off, and he's like, yeah, I'm going to go watch the game with my wife, girlfriend, I can't remember. And I was like, what's the score? And he's like, the Spurs are up 29 in the second half. And I said, oh, wow, they're about to tie this thing up. Didn't even think about going back and checking the score again. And then later that day, I see a tweet. Later that night, I see a tweet about the Knicks winning. And I was like, no way. And I was like, this must be an old tweet. You know, sometimes you get like, sometimes my X account will like go away from most recent, and I don't know why. And so you'll get like some tweet from 21 hours ago or something like that. Like, and I'm thinking, oh, this must be an old tweet from a couple days ago. And I was like, holy moly, this is from tonight. And then Knicks came back and won. 29-point lead. It's wild to see how the narrative about Wemby has changed since this series. It went from like, wow, this guy carried them to the finals to what a choke artist in a dirty
Mm-hmm.
player. It's wild to see how quickly his perception changed.
Oh, it's nuts. And I know there's a lot of other candidates for least clutch teams, but like I see it in the chat, like T-Guns agreed. The 28-7 Super Bowl is crazy, but I can rationalize it in my head where it's like, yeah, a team blew a lead to Tom Brady.
And they did it once.
Yeah, I get that. But
they didn't do it 4 other times.
Like that is crazy to me. Like that's just even the Warriors blowing the 3-1 lead to the Cavs. It's like, yeah, did you blew a 3-1 lead to a team that had LeBron James and Kyrie, who was averaging 40 in the playoffs? Like I can understand
a team
that.
whose best player is Jalen Brunson, who's a heck of a player, but he's not LeBron. He's not, maybe he's Kyrie. I don't know, but again, Kyrie had LeBron. LeBron had Kyrie. It wasn't just LeBron or you know what I mean? Yeah.
Nuts.
Yeah.
From Algonquin, Irish buy-sell hold the recruiting success the last 2 to 3 years and 2027 potential, specifically in the trenches, has 2 benefits. Most obviously, a depth of uber-talented players that can come at opposing offenses in waves. Secondarily, practices will go in many weeks be more competitive than games, accelerating improvement up and down the depth chart like Alabama 5+ years ago.
I'll buy that. I think that's a great observation. I don't know that there's a lot I can add to that. I think Algonquin nailed that one. Yeah, I mean, you're going to – now, in practice, you don't play ones-on-ones during the season. You don't do ones-on-ones. But let's say next year your scout team DNs in the first couple weeks are Abraham Cisse, Jackson Vaughn, and Nate O'Neill. Just like, and your D tackles are David Fuller-Runcho and Braden Parks or something like that. I mean, like, dude, yeah. You're going to face guys with more experience, but you're going to face a more athletic group of guys. Like that's kind of that's kind of where we're coming from. So yeah, I'll buy that. It's a great observation. Great observation.
Yep. Buy that for sure. Then another one from Algonquin Irish, buy, sell, hold. The latest trend, acceleration and reclassifications will ultimately hurt players. Very few 17-year-olds are ready for the physical and mental grind of P4 football programs and schedules.
My gut is to agree with you and buy it. But as more and more and more players do this, the bar of maturity lowers for the sport as a whole. When you're one of the rare number of guys that does something, then you're going to be in a tougher situation. When every team now has 6 or 7 reclassified kids, which is the trend this is going to minimum, then number one, more and more teams have a better plan on how to help younger people transition. We've went through some experiments of what's worked and what's not worked for these kids that reclassify. And there's more like you. There's more guys to lean on. Hey, what was it like for you? How, those type of things. And then as the sport gets younger, then the standard for what's required physically and mentally changes, and it's lowered. And now you're more prepared for it. I also think kids from a sports standpoint are growing up a lot faster. And I don't necessarily like that, but it's just true.
I'm selling this depending on what a team scenario is. Like we've used the example before of JT Daniels. If you're relying on a reclassified kid to come in and be your day one starter, I don't know if I'm going to love that as much. But in some of the scenarios with Notre Dame taking reclassified kids, if you're not expecting them to come in and be a starter day one, in my opinion, especially depending on the league that you play in high school and what that looks like, you're going to get more from being in a collegiate strength and training program and going through the rigorous grind of a college. I mean, look at Teddy Gerard. He's coming in and he's not expected to even be battling really for the number 2 quarterback job this summer. His job is to get his feet under him and start to grind. Now, if he organically inserts himself into the QB2 conversation, then let's ride. He's ready to go. But he's not expected to come in and start. So in those scenarios, I'm okay with an early enrollee or a reclassified kid coming in. But if they're expecting a reclassified offensive lineman to come in and be a starting left guard for a team, like that's tough.
Yep.
We got the buy sell hold going on here in the Irish Breakdown podcast, brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. And getting us kicked off here, we have B Jammin' 41. Rules stay the same. Most entertaining sport: baseball without mitts, football without pads, boxing without rounds.
I mean, the most entertaining would be boxing without rounds. I mean, could you imagine if the Hagler-Hearns fight or the Hagler-Sugar Ray or the Hagler-Leonard fights would have not had rounds? You know what I mean? Like, oh my gosh, that'd be super entertaining. That's a buy. I'll hold the football without pads. I mean, we have that. It's either A, rugby, or B, 7-on-7 flag football. Flag football, I mean. Baseball without mitts would be super lame, in my opinion, and borderline dangerous. I mean, it's just like, you know what I mean? Like, if we're playing wiffle ball, but like balls get thrown and hit a lot faster and harder than they used to, when they had to, and even then they still had like those little weird looking mitts, which, by the way, have you ever put one of those on your hand? Those mitts from like the 20s and 30s? I did as a kid. My grandfather had one. And so they're weird. They're very weird to feel. But yeah, I mean, even then you still had something. Baseball without mitts would be just no.
I mean,
it's all hitting.
Yeah. I mean, it would also be borderline impossible to play. Nose goes on being the catcher. I refuse to be a catcher without a mitt.
Yeah. I know, right?
I mean,
it would change how you pitch. I mean, you couldn't throw the same way you do now. I mean, the whole thing would be bad. It's definitely selling that one.
Agreed. Same order. Next one from B. Jammin. You can have Michael Floyd, Golden Tate, and Jeremiah Love on this team, but Drew Pine is a quarterback.
Let's roll.
Heck yeah.
I mean, let's roll. Yeah. Let's roll. Yeah, I'm down. I mean, guys, we watched Drew Pine go 8-2 at quarterback with Lorenzo Styles and Chris Tyree and Deion Colsey at receiver. Okay, sure. I mean, at that point in time, it's like, dude, just read the defense, simple read, and then throw it up to Mike, throw it up to Golden. Have a lot of those little 3-yard slant routes that turned into 50-yard touchdowns. I think Drew can handle that. Yeah, sign me up. I watched Jacob Coker win a national title because the team around him was so flipping good. Sure. Sign me up. Let's go.
Yes. That is an absolute buy for me as well. Sometimes you don't have to be an all-star quarterback when you have weapons like that. You just don't.
Got to be smart. And Drew's smart. And it's nice to have we saw what Drew could do when it was, if all else fails, throw it up to Michael Mayer. And, I mean, a supporting cast can do that for you. I mean, if you look at what Drew Pine had in 2022 and the numbers he put up, I mean, Trev, he completed 64.6% of his passes, average 8-yard an attempt, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and had a 155.27 quarterback rating. In a matchup against the eventual Heisman Trophy winner, he went 23 of 26 for 88.5% completion rate, 318 yards, 12.2 yards per attempt, 3 touchdowns and a pick. Yet at Bowling Green, he only averaged 5.8 yards per attempt, 4 touchdowns and 5 picks before getting benched. And in Missouri, he completed less than 60% of his passes, 3 touchdowns, 3 picks, and averaged 4.8 yards per attempt. It's amazing how that looked so much different when he didn't have Michael Mayer to throw to and Audric Estime and Logan Diggs to hand off to. You know what I mean? Like he went on the road and went 24 of 34 for 70.6% completion, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns and no picks while out-dueling Drake May. Why? Because look who he had around him.
Yeah, two things can be true. They would still have a really good season, but I don't know if Drew Pine would be a favorite to win the Heisman on FanDuel like what CJ Carr is right now. He wouldn't suck. I mean,
I think they could win a championship with him at quarterback if you had that. Goodness gracious. Yeah. With this offensive line and that group, yeah. Okay. I mean, let's roll, son. I mean, come on, bro. Joe Mark 612 in the chat. Greg McElroy won a national championship. And I don't mean that as a slight to Greg McElroy. He would tell you this. Like his job was to Get the ball to his dudes. That was his job. He didn't have great physical. And I know this may come across as like an insult to Greg McElroy and, based on our little tiff on his show, but it's not at all. He did his job. Get the ball to my guys. I've got studs around me. We play great defense, and I've got some horses to throw the ball to. So that's what he did. I mean, Alabama won a national championship with Greg McElroy at quarterback in a season, Trev, in 2009, where he threw for 17 touchdowns and 4 picks, only 22,508 yards. Why? Because he was handing off to Mark Ingram and Trent Richardson, and he was throwing the ball to Julio Jones. I mean, and they had a great defense that gave up 11.7 points per game.
Mm-hmm.
So, let's roll, son.
Yeah, because of his supporting cast, I watched J.J. McCarthy go undefeated, win the Big Ten, and win a title. If you give Drew Pine, Golden Tate, Michael Floyd, and Jeremiah Love, I think he'd do just fine.
With this offensive line?
Yeah.
I mean, who's his slot receiver? Jordan Faison, Jaden Greathouse, Mylan Graham? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's roll.
And then the best gold helmet outside of Notre Dame is Colorado.
Colorado has a great helmet. It's not the best.
Did Brian freeze, or is that me? Okay. Well, sounds like Brian's power unfortunately went out. He just texted me. So I'll keep us rolling here. Let me get this all switched around here just a second, because I do actually have the cards now, which is good. So give me just a second here. But as far as the gold helmet question, yeah, I think I'm going where Brian was going with this one. For me, I think it's Florida State. I think that they have the best. I think that they have the best gold helmets outside of Notre Dame, personally. Now, some may disagree, some might not, but that's where I'm at. So give me just a second here, and I'll get these other cards pulled up. Boom. And then right here. All righty. So that's where I'm at with that one. I think the best gold helmet is Florida State's. Outside of Colorado, but I do like Colorado's helmets. I miss the era where like Colorado, like early on in like the late 90s, early 2000s, were like a better football team. My memory serves me correctly. Like my 1 year of watching Colorado be good was 2024 when they had Travis Hunter. Their helmets were iconic, but it maybe just doesn't carry that same weight with me. But that's where I'm at with Colorado's helmets. I'd go Florida State's. Some more here from BJam in 41. Buy, sell, hold, more likely. Bryce Young, 8 or more sacks. Keaton Young, 8 or more touchdowns. Tay Johnson, 8 or more interceptions. I'll buy one, sell one, hold one. This one's difficult. I'm going to sell Tay Johnson 8 or more interceptions. That one's tough. I think he could have a phenomenal season, but the year that Xavier Watts won the Bronco Nagurski Award, he didn't get to 8 interceptions. The year that I thought he had a better year, talking Xavier Watts, in 2024, he did not have 8 interceptions or more. So that one would probably be myself. Brian, I can go back to the gold helmet.
Yes, because I got to answer the gold. I don't know what happened. Like our power went off and then came right back on. It's the weirdest thing.
Okay.
It's a beautiful day, so I have no clue what happened.
Okay, well, gold helmets, man. I'm before the power so rudely interrupted you.
I know, right? Colorado's a very nice gold helmet, but there's several that I would put ahead of theirs. Florida State has a better gold helmet than Colorado. I think Georgia Tech has a better gold helmet than Colorado. I like the design, but it's just the black and gold is just, it's nice, but it's not as nice. I think Tulsa has a really nice gold helmet. But my favorite gold helmet of all, Washington, when Washington used to have their gold, like when they wear their gold helmet, I know they wear different, but their gold helmet's really sharp as well. better than Colorado's. But my favorite gold helmet, Trevin, you already know my answer to this. It's UCLA's. Like, there's just something about that color blue with that type of gold I just think is amazing. But there's some really nice gold helmets in college football. Notre Dame does not have the only nice one, but there's just something about Notre Dame's that is just, it's different. It's the shininess. It matches with the uniforms, but I really like UCLA's gold.
No, that's fair, because UCLA,
What did you
they
say?
also, I said Florida State.
Okay.
I like the combination of those. UCLA's I like because they also have gold face masks. Like that, I think that's an interesting facet of theirs. Colorado's I put more in the bucket of then you start talking about Purdue, Wake Forest. Like those are all very similar to me, the black and gold color scheme. I will say Wake Forest, one year they had Sam Hartman, had like chrome gold helmets, and those were nuts. So those were interesting. But my answer was Florida
I remember that. Yeah, that was nice. Yep. Agree.
This other one from B Jammin, which one was more likely? I turned it into a buy one, sell one, hold one. Bryce Young, 8 or more sacks. Kedron Young, 8 or more touchdowns. Or Tay Johnson, 8 or more interceptions.
So I know you were in the middle of answering this one, Trev. So go ahead and kind of give your answer, and then I'll follow up after you're done.
Yep. I'm selling Tay Johnson, 8 or more interceptions. Is it impossible through a 15, 16 game season? No, but of the three, I think that's the least likely. I'm going to actually buy Bryce Young 8 or more sacks because I think that one, more than any of these other ones, would make Notre Dame's defense the elite defense that we need it to. We've talked on this show a lot about how the Bryce Young is one of the players on this entire roster, not just on defense, that his emergence to being a star would be the most impactful. So I'm going to buy Bryce Young 8 or more sacks, and then I'll hold Kedron Young 8 or more touchdowns. I just got to see what he looks like after the knee injury. Is he the same athlete? He's a bigger type of running back to come back from something like that. So that's my order. I'm buying Bryce Young, holding Kedron Young, selling Tay Johnson.
I'm holding Tay because of the reason you just mentioned with Kedron. I think Kedron's more than capable of that, but I need to see what he looks like post-injury. And the fact that he missed all of the spring despite getting injured in like early August is a little bit concerning for me.
Yeah.
All of August, September, October, November, December, January, February, March. I mean, the beginning of spring is when he should have started coming back. And even by the end of spring, we still hadn't seen him back yet. That's a little concerning for me. If he's healthy, he's the buy. Because I think that would have made a lot of sense, but I don't even know that he's going to be healthy. To your point, Tay, that's a lot of picks, and but the way that they use him, I could see it. But I'm going to buy Bryce Young 8 more sacks, and not even just because your answer is great. Let me give another answer, Trev. I also think a guy that had 29 sacks last year as a rotation player is a little bit of an improvement away from all of a sudden having 8 sacks. I mean, he had a much better pressure rate than Boubacar on a per snap pressure rate than Boubacar had last year. And, now he's just got to turn those into more sacks. I also think if Boubacar has the breakout that we think he's going to have, you're going to see a lot more teams putting their attention on Boubacar, and plays where Boubacar gets pressure, forces the quarterback away from him and into the arms of Bryce Young. So I think practically, that's also the most likely of the three. That doesn't require me to say, well, as long as this guy is the athlete he was before a knee injury, that kind of, you know what I mean? That kind of thing.
No, that's totally fair. I get that completely. Another one from B Jam in 41. Most likely scenario for the college football playoff championship game. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Notre Dame versus Oregon, Notre Dame versus Texas, Notre Dame versus Ohio State.
It's a good submission. I'm going to buy Texas. I just think between Texas and Ohio State, I think Texas has a little bit of a better schedule after Ohio State than what Ohio State does. That's going to make, so between the two of them, I think of these three, Ohio State has the toughest schedule of these three by quite a bit. That's partly why Ohio State is my sell. Oregon's my hold. I also don't know that this Ohio State team is quite as talented across the board as those other two teams. Now, is that a shot at Ohio State? No, Ohio State's very talented, but we're talking about nitpicking between 3 of the 4 arguably best teams of college football, maybe 3 of the 5. If you want to put Miami in there, maybe Georgia, those type of teams. But Ohio State's going to have a very solid offensive line, very talented running backs, an elite receiver, other talented but unproven receivers, which I don't care as much about at receiver. I don't care about being proven. Very, very good, steady quarterback. Maybe he's not what Dante and Arch are, but still pretty good. The big concern for me is new offensive coordinator that I don't know what to expect from him. And I know Oregon has 2 new coordinators, but they're from within the system, which, could potentially lead to a little bit more continuity than what we're seeing with Arthur Smith. And number 2, they lost absolute monsters on defense last year from their defense last year. I mean, you lost 2 All-American linebackers, an All-American safety, and 3 guys that were top 11 draft picks. And that doesn't even get into Caden Curry, Cade McDonald, guys like that were really good players for Ohio State last year. So just the big 3 alone that they lost would be a huge loss. But then and that does, like I said, doesn't even get into Caden Curry, Caden McDonald, Davidson Igbinosun. You lost your nickel and Lorenzo Styles. Like you lost some dudes off that team. Now you got some dudes coming back, but when we're debating between 3 really good teams, I'm going to lean towards the teams that we know a little bit. We have a little bit more certainty on. And you could say, well, Ohio State's got a really good quarterback. Well, so does Oregon, so does Texas. Ohio State's got a great receiver. Okay, none of the guys at those schools are as good as Jeremiah Smith, but Cam Coleman is no bum. And DeCorian Moore and Evan Stewart are pretty darn good players as well. So at least those teams are good there, where some of the areas where I know that Texas and Oregon are going to be pretty good, I don't know that Ohio State's going to be as good. D-line, for example, that kind of thing. Ohio State's going to be very good. Don't get it twisted. It's just, if we're talking of comparison, those 3 really good teams, I got to go with Texas first. I think Oregon's path is going to be a little bit easier just because they don't have the same type of schedule that Ohio State's got to wade through. Ohio State could have a brutal schedule and then have to play a Big Ten title game.
Right.
That's going to be rough. And you wonder, man, how then they got to go through at least a 2-game, postseason to get to the championship game against Notre Dame. So I think all those things are why I'm selling Ohio State. And for all the people who say, well, I can't buy Sark. Well, I mean, I get that, but Ryan Day's the only guy that's really proven he can get to the title game. But let's be honest, Texas has been far more competitive in the semifinals than Oregon has, and they've gotten there more times. I mean, for all the hate on Sark for, not getting the most out of his team, I get that. But they have been a Final Four team 2 of the last 3 years. And we're in both games. They're one more good series away on offense against Washington from taking a lead in that game. They had the ball in the fourth quarter, chance to take the lead. They had the ball in the fourth quarter against Ohio State with a chance to tie the game late in the game at 21 and got stopped. And, whereas Oregon gets to the semifinals and the game's over by the end of the first quarter. So that's partly why I wanted to sell Oregon, but their combination of talent, softer schedule than Ohio State, and just kind of maybe being due a little bit are why I put them over Ohio State. Ohio State could be a better team than Oregon and not make the playoffs. You guys get that, right? With that schedule, that's going to be rough. Oregon would have to underachieve to not make the playoffs. Now, I think there's a shot they both make the playoffs, but that stretch for Ohio State, man, they better have great depth because that's a brutal regular season schedule. Brutal. And, somebody just said, can Manning drive the field 4 minutes left, down 4 points? Not sure. I think that's true for all those guys.
Yeah.
Dante can do it against Iowa. Great.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it against Indiana.
Yeah.
Who else did he do that against? Who has Julian Sand done that against? So it's a fair criticism of Arch, but my point is, in this debate between these 2 teams, I think that's a criticism you can make for all 3 of those quarterbacks.
All of these teams that you chose here, B-Jammin, are very close. It's interesting. It's like, what do you trust more, the talent on the rosters of Texas and Oregon, or a head coach in Ryan Day who has beat all 3 of Marcus Freeman, Steve Sarkisian, and Dan Lanning in the postseason? That's a very interesting
by double
choice
digits, by the way. He beat all of them by double digits, by the way.
Yeah, and so I have the same order as Brian. I think this Ohio State team in some areas will be more talented than the team that won the title in 24, and then others it won't be close. Like I have a lot of concerns around their linebacking core, really their front seven in general, because they're going to be asking a lot of some of those guys. I like their offensive line. You guys know my stance on what Ohio State's operation is with their run game. Not going to hash too much into that. But then with Oregon, it's like, hey, Dan Lanning, can you just make sure that your team not only wins a playoff game, just doesn't get beat by 30 in big moments? Like, that's going to be big. I say it kind of, with a snarky attitude, but I mean, they've gotten bounced in the playoffs very resoundingly, albeit to the 2 title winners, but got to be able to overcome those. So I have the same order as you do, but it'll be very interesting to watch it play out, because with that schedule, if Ohio State makes the playoff and makes the playoff comfortably, they're going to be a team that's poised to go on a run, because there will be no more battle-tested team in college football than Ohio State.
No, agree. There will not be a more battle-tested team if they make the playoffs in Ohio State. My fear is that Ohio State just has to go through all that gauntlet and then not get a bye, and then now they got to play 4 games.
Agreed. Not get a bye, and then they're just out of gas.
Yeah.
With that schedule,
they
bro.
lose the Big Ten title game to Oregon or Indiana, and then now they've got to play 4 playoff games. That's asking a lot.
Yep, sure would.
Josh in the chat, Josh said he thinks Ohio State takes a step back on defense. I agree, but they're still going to be very good. And they're the number 1 defense in the country last year. I think they'll be top 10 this year, but closer to maybe 10 than number 1. That's still a very good defense. But I think there's a chance they're going to be a little bit better on offense this year, though.
Yeah,
we'll see, but it's the schedule that's the hard part.
From Law Dog, by so whole, Josh Burnham would be the 3rd best D lineman on the 26 defense.
As of today, right now, I'd sell that. If he were still on the team, he'd be the 2nd best defensive lineman on the team right now. That of what we know. Now, is there a world in which he would have come back and ended up as the 3rd best D lineman? Yeah, of course, because Bryce Young could have a breakout year, Jason Onye could have a breakout year, Burt Francis Brew, Tion Gray, Keon Keeley. There's lots of options there, but as of right now, he'd be my number 2 defensive lineman on the roster.
Same page. That's why it was such a big loss when he transferred to Indiana. I'm with you.
Yeah. Yep.
Buy, sell, hold, Adon Schuler's pick in front of his new black Beamer.
I'm trying to look this up. I have not seen this pick. So was it on Twitter?
I might have posted it on his Instagram.
I didn't see it on Instagram, but I don't necessarily know how to look at the most recent thing on Instagram, to be honest with you, Trev.
I'm looking it up right now.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess I can't really comment on it because I don't really know what you're referring to. How do you find like the most recent thing? Do you click on that thing right there?
Nope, it's not on his Instagram.
Okay. So yeah, I'm not sure what you're talking about. So, and it's not on his Twitter page, I don't believe. So
yeah, I'm
sorry, man. We're not as yeah. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what you're referring to.
Yeah. Well, I'll buy it in theory, because if it looks cool, I mean, it just kind of furthers the point that the coolness level of Notre Dame is continuous ascending under Marcus Freeman, but I haven't seen it. So,
well, it's earned. I mean, Adon makes a lot of money on his camp. He makes a lot of money on legit NIL deals. And of course he gets the rev share and all that. So yeah,
right.
Happy for him. Happy for him. That kid's worked for everything he's gotten.
Buy one, sell one, hold one. Most impactful true freshman this season: Rodney Dunham, Joey O'Brien, Bubba Frazier.
Okay, I'm going to cheat a little bit, Trev. Somebody said it's on his second account on Instagram. I barely look at his first account. I'm not going to look for a second account on Instagram. But anyway, so I'm going to cheat. I'm going to make up a new rule, Trev, because I'm not selling any of those kids. So here's what I'm going to do, Trev. I'm going to buy the most Rodney Dunham because I think there's a need at the position. He's healthy, and he's an elite talent. I'm going to buy the second most Joey O'Brien, even with the injury. I think whenever he comes back, I think Joey O'Brien's going to eventually work into the 2 deep and be an impactful player. And I'm going to sell the third most on offense, Bubba Frazier. Now, if you want to include everything on there, offense and defense and special teams, then Bubba leaps Joey. Because I have a feeling Bubba Frazier is going to be an impactful return player for Notre Dame this year. So that would
Yeah,
be
you and I see this very much the same. I was going to buy Rodney Dunham as the most impactful true freshman on the D line. I was going to buy Joey O'Brien as the most impactful true freshman at safety, and I was going to buy Bubba Frazier as the most impactful true freshman, either on offense or special teams. So we see that very much the same. Buy, sell, hold from TN Irish. The 2026 defensive line will record the most sacks in a season by any Notre Dame D line.
you know what? I don't know that I necessarily know the answer to that question, but I think it's got a chance to be the answer to that. Yeah, I would imagine they have a chance to whatever the number is for a D line. They have a chance to do that. Yes.
Yeah, with the level of talent that they have, I buy that they have the opportunity to whatever that number is. But I just don't know.
Yeah.
I'm with you. And then the freshman receiver who will be the most impactful by the end of the season. Buy one, sell one, hold one between Devin Fitzgerald, Caden Finley, or Bubba Frazier.
If we're talking on offense, I mean, I'd probably go buy Bubba Frazier. I'd probably hold Caden Finley and sell Devin Fitzgerald. I know that Devin has had the better spring, but I think Caden is going to make a big jump this season. There's also a little like the depth chart in the boundary is going to be a little bit tougher for Devin once Quincy Porter's able to go. He was third string W in the spring, and that was before Quincy Porter came in. And Devin had a great spring, but he also did that against the freshmen and walk-on DBs. So, but I'll say this, Trev, I don't know that there's a wrong answer to this. I think all three of them will have a shot to play this year, but I think all three of them are going to have a tough ask to get into the rotation. If we're going to talk holistically, then my answer is Bubba Frazier for the same reason it was previously.
Yeah, but I think Bubba Frazier is a clear buy for all around impact, but also just from what we saw in the spring. And then it's honestly a toss up between Devin Fitzgerald and Caden Finley. Devin Fitzgerald had the better spring. I'm very curious to see what Caden Finley does in fall camp and throughout summer workouts. Fact of the matter is they were both going up against true freshman DBs and like scout team DBs. So whoever has a big fall, I'm very much looking forward to seeing. That's for sure. Then another one from TN Irish, buy, sell, hold. Although 2026 tight end may prove to be more of a committee approach, the position will have more yards and touchdowns than a tight end group since 2022.
Let me. So last year the tight ends had 40 catches for 546 yards and one touchdown. I think they'll have more touchdowns than that. I don't know about more catches and yards. 2 years ago, Mitchell Evans had 43. He had 54, 58, 59. He had 60 catches 2 years ago in 16 games. I'm going to sell this. I think the tight ends could end up maybe having a better yards per catch number potentially. I think that you're going to see a good year from the tight ends, but just the nature of their skill set and the fact that there's so many good receivers and you've got Aeneas Williams out of the backfield, I just don't think it's necessarily going to be more than what we saw in the last few years. I mean, last year you had a pretty decent yardage season. You know, you look at 2023, you had Mitchell Evans had 29 catches for 422 yards. Holden Stace had 15 catches for 176 yards and 4 TDs. And then Eli Raritan had 5 catches for 51 yards. And then Cooper Flanagan and Davis Sherwood combined for 3 catches for 37 yards and 2 more touchdowns. I mean, we've seen good production from the tight end position. I think it'll be comparable to that. I don't know that it'll necessarily have more yards and TDs. TDs would be the most likely thing that they'll have if they have more. That I could see. It's the yards I'm having a tougher time with.
Yeah, I'm selling this one as well because I think this is also going to be the most productive wide receiving core that Notre Dame has had in quite some time as well. And that's the other factor and piece in this especially when you start talking about receptions and yards. Touchdowns, they have a chance, especially more than last year. They better have more receiving touchdowns than what they had last year. But yeah, I'm with you. I'm selling it as well. Then aside from quarterback, the position group most critical to Notre Dame's success this year is O-line, D-line, or secondary. Buy one, sell one, hold one.
I'm going to buy offensive line, hold defensive line, and sell secondary. I think we've asked this question before, and I might have reversed the lines, and I'll keep doing that. If you ask me this again, I may say D-line first, O-line second. The lines are significantly more important than any other position on the team. And I would actually include quarterback in that conversation because a talented quarterback ends up not being so good if he's constantly getting harassed because the offensive line's not playing at elite level. And we just mentioned, I mean, Kyler Murray had 0 national championships. Bryce Young had no national championships. I'm trying to think. Baker Mayfield had no national championships. Lamar Jackson had no national championship. Drake May had no national championships. A lot of talented quarterbacks with no national championships. Greg McElroy won a championship. A.J. McCarron won 2. Jacob Coker won a national championship. Why? Because he played around elite other players. So there are the Cam Newton seasons and stuff like that, but those are anomalies. And that also happened in the down year in college football. This will not be that. So I think the lines and honestly, it's today I'm going O-line, D-line, then secondary. If Trev, you want to go D-line, O-line, and secondary, I will not even remotely disagree with you. It's the lines and then the secondary. Great Stetson Bennett, Jay Melvin said Stetson Bennett won 2 titles. Exactly. Something that Joe Burrow couldn't do, something that Trevor Lawrence couldn't do, something that Cam Newton didn't do. He only played 1 year. Something that Tim Tebow couldn't do. Something Matt Leinart couldn't do. Why? What's around him?
Yep, for sure. We have the exact same order. I think O-line and D-line are interchangeable because, like, look, we've talked about it before. You can have an elite secondary, but if your defense can't get pressure on the quarterback, it just doesn't matter. There is a finite amount of time that even Leonard Moore can cover somebody for. You got to get after the quarterback. Have to.
Yep.
I believe this is the last card, but we have a couple of super chats at the end. From TN Irish, buy, sell, hold, the structural change, ignoring coaching performance and effort that has helped Notre Dame's roster building the most has been NIL, the transfer portal, or closer partnership with admissions.
It's a great question. I'm going to say the transfer portal. And the reason I'm going to say the transfer portal because we saw Notre Dame be able to use the portal to improve in areas where they had not done well in recruiting under Brian Kelly that allowed them to win games that are why the NIL and the admission stuff matters. If they can't go get Riley Leonard in 2023, I don't know that Notre Dame sniffs the national championship game. With all due respect to Steve Angeli and freshman CJ Carr and redshirt freshman Kenny Minchie, I don't know that they would have won 10 games in 2023. Maybe Tyler Buckner finally stays healthy and plays all season. But I mean, are you betting your mortgage on that, Trev? I'm not.
No.
You look at the impact that some of the other transfer portal guys have had. The Nichols, Thomas Harper, and then Jordan Clark, and then Devontae Smith. You know, you look at the impact that the transfer guys had in the Georgia win with Bo Collins and Jaden Harrison. And you say, well, maybe some Notre Dame players would have done that. Maybe. But what I know is the transfers did that. I think that's allowed Notre Dame to bridge the gap in areas where the previous staff had failed to recruit well enough. And then that helped lead to where we are now. I think all these things are important. They're all important to the success. But I think the transfer portal has been the biggest structural change that's helped Notre Dame's roster because that's led to the victories and success on the field that then has helped them use NIL to go get guys and things like that and the closer partnership. Because if Notre Dame has all this money to spend, but they're coming off of, Freeman's first 3 years, they went 9-4, 9-4, and 9-4, 10-3. Are they recruiting the way that they recruited in 26 and 27? No, they're not. You can't dismiss how important the national title game run was on Notre Dame. And the transfer portal is the reason for that. Now, you could say, well, NIL helped you get Riley Leonard. Sure, but if there's no NIL, you're still getting Riley Leonard. You know what I mean? Like, he's still coming to Notre Dame. Bo Collins is still transferring to Notre Dame if there's no NIL. Jaden Harrison is still transferring to Notre Dame if it's just the portal. If the NIL wasn't a thing and there still was a transfer portal, I don't know that any of those portal guys they got would have still not come. They would have still come. Because those were kids that, like, we're looking at a bigger picture than just, NIL. NIL has been incredibly important. And I think the closer partnership with admissions has been incredibly important. I would probably sell that one of the three, just because they haven't needed that maybe as much as some of us think they've needed that. But they all go together. The relationship with admissions has been and if you talk to the coaching staff, off the record, they'll tell you that. The relationship that Marcus Freeman has with the admissions people has been very beneficial. And not in a way where, like, oh, they love Marcus, they let him get this kid in or that kid in that they otherwise wouldn't get. No, it's because there's a respect there. He respects the job they do. They respect the job he does. They're not always fighting with each other because the football coach is crying every time they don't get a 2.2 and an 8.30 SAT into school, because he's real good at football. He says, hey, I'm going to bring you kids that I think can succeed here. Will you all work with me? And as we said, working with him means you tell that young man, if you want to get into school here, here's what you need to do, A, B, C, D, and E. And if the kid does it, he's got a shot to get in. Tay Johnson did that. Christopher Burgess did that. There's been plenty of kids that did that are kids that can thrive at Notre Dame, but just need the guidance on, hey, here's what you need to take. Here's what you need to do. And then they go prove that they're going to get the work done. And it's been a great relationship, and those kids are thriving. That's been very important. But there's also some kids you're not going to have at Notre Dame right now if it's not for NIL. They all go together.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, the other thing, too, that doesn't get talked about enough with NIL opportunities is retaining rosters. Everybody talks about what player that you go out and attract and who you got from the portal and what you can give to this signee. Well, let's also talk about how, Notre Dame returns 73% of its production, the most out of any team in college football. You don't keep some of those guys if it wasn't for NIL opportunities. But you need all three. I'm with you. I'm with you completely. Brian, like I said, we did have a couple of super chats before we got out of here today. First one from ND Wine and Cheese. Appreciate the super chat. Buy one, sell one, hold one. Notre Dame beats these teams, BYU by 17 or more, Miami by 14 or more, or Wisconsin by 28 or more.
I'm buying that they beat Wisconsin by 28 or more. That's a pretty easy one. I'll be shocked if they don't beat Wisconsin by more than 28.
Yep.
Of the other two, I'll probably hold BYU just because I think Notre Dame can out-athlete BYU to a score of 17 plus, just like Texas Tech did last year. Very similar, and I think Notre Dame's better than Texas Tech was. I'll sell Miami at 14 plus. Is Notre Dame capable of beating Miami by 14 plus? Sure. Am I going to predict it? No. That's a really good football team. And I'm not going to predict a top 5 team to beat another top 15 team or another top 5 team by 14 or more points. I'll predict them to win because they're at home. But by 14 points, I'm not doing that. We went through this last year. Notre Dame lost. Remember how many times we got asked about how many times Notre Dame's going to beat this team by Miami by double digits? And we're like, guys, pump the brakes a little bit. And then they lost. I think they win the game, but I think it's going to be, if I'm predicting, it's going to be closer. Now, is it possible that they, of course. I mean, if Miami and Notre Dame play again a week later in 2017, I promise you Miami doesn't win by 33. Stuff happens. But I'm not predicting it. Just like no sane Miami fan was going to predict 41-8 win. Now, that was a night where the homers got it right. That's a little bit different. But no, I'm not predicting it. Anything can happen, especially if Notre Dame's as good as we think. And there's going to be the revenge factor and all that. But just matchup-wise, I'm going with matchup-wise. Matchup-wise, buying Wisconsin, holding BYU, selling Miami. I think they win all three, but I think Miami will be more competitive.
Yeah, man. I mean, same exact order. And with the BYU game, 17, there's a lot that could go into that. Notre Dame could be up by 10 and, end the game on a pick 6 and go up by 17, something like that. But I will not predict a Notre Dame Miami 2 touchdown score game. Either way, it's just, nah. Then from ND Milton fan, appreciate the super chat. Buy, sell, hold. The best Notre Dame team from the Willingham, Kelly, and Freeman eras. Which one wins head-to-head?
This kind of goes back to a debate we had a couple weeks ago. I would take the 05 Notre Dame team over the 2018 Notre Dame team. None of Ty's teams are like in this. Their team gets beat in the first round by whoever. The 02 team gets beat by whoever. It's a great season, but no. I think the 2018 team overall was more talented, certainly had better coaching, but I think that 2018 team still would have had a tough time stopping that 05 offense. And I don't know that 2018 team on a big stage would have been able to do a whole lot offensively.
Yeah.
Enough to win that game. And mainly because of coaching. We saw Charlie Weiss teams in 05 go toe-to-toe with two of the four best teams in the country, and they gave them both a game. And they gave USC a game, and Ohio State Zibikowski's fumble return in the fourth quarter away from tying it up. This is a 7-point game. Brian Kelly doesn't have a team within 7 points in the fourth quarter of a game like that, a Fiesta Bowl. It took Will Fuller making a guy fall down and then outrunning the Ohio State defense to even make it a 10-point game, and it still wasn't close. They were never in that game. The 05 team was in that game because of the offense. So 18 and 05, if somebody wants to argue for 05, I'm fine with that. Or 18, I'm fine with that. I think Chief Brody would probably go with 18. And that's fine. I'm going 05, and but I don't think you're nuts for going with 18. And I also don't think you're nuts if you think 12 was better than the 18 team. That's fine. I'd still go 18. So it'd be 18 versus 02 versus 05, and I would take 05 in that because who am I going to have the most confidence in a big game? Brady Quinn, Pat Dillingham, or Ian Book? I'm going Brady Quinn.
Very fair.
Joe Mark said, I think the 2014 team was better than 18. No, they weren't a better team. They went 8-5. They lost to Northwestern. They were a more talented team. And if you want to talk about talent, I think the most talented Notre Dame team was 2011. But they went 8-5. They were not better than the 2018 team.
Yep.
You could argue they were more talented, but you can't argue they were better.
Yeah, it's that age-old conversation of there has to be a separator between the most talented team and the best team. I think 2025 Notre Dame was more talented than 2024 Notre Dame, but they weren't a better team. That's the point. I'm with you completely.
Yep. Agree. And I think that was the last super chat. Now, Josh Phillips did get a question in late on the chat or on the thread. He's a member. Everybody keeps saying the 05 defense was terrible. Yeah, you guys don't think we know that, but that terrible defense and that great offense had Notre Dame on the verge of beating USC. And with a touchdown of Ohio State, do you understand how good that offense was? I watched the 18 team lose by 27 in the semifinals. Yes, the defensive performance against Ohio State and USC was better than the offensive performance against Clemson in 2018. Am I wrong? So, yeah. It's always the response. 05 defense was terrible. Yeah, we understand that. It's probably the greatest offense in Notre Dame history, though, that we saw go toe-to-toe with the team that was a fourth down stop of Vince Young from winning the title that year. That was one stop away from tying a great top 5 Ohio State team in the Fiesta Bowl that year. Why? Because of the offense.
Yep.
So in a matchup against a team that scored a whopping 3 points in their big game that year, who am I taking? I'm taking the team that actually showed that they could go toe-to-toe with top teams and win, or at least go toe-to-toe and have a chance to win.
Agree completely.
Anyway, that'll do it for today's show. Oh, Josh Phillips had he got a late submission in, and then he into the chat, but in the thread. So he is a member, and he asked the worst hire after Lou Holtz, Charlie Weiss, Ty Willingham, or Bob Davie. And my answer is still Bob Davie. I think Ty Willingham was the worst coach, but the reason I say Bob Davie is because the timing of the Davie hire was terrible. You could have had Barry Alvarez. Your program was kind of teetering. You were 3 years removed, 3-4 years removed from that great 93 team. You still had a lot of talent. still recruit, could still pull recruits. If you make the right hire, Notre Dame gets right back on track, in my opinion. And instead, you hired Bob Davie. Ty Willingham was just a worse continuation of what had already started. Davie was the one that started it. Charlie Weiss was a significantly better hire than both of them, because Charlie Weiss showed that you can recruit at Notre Dame at an elite level, while the other two coaches kept crying about how you can't recruit at Notre Dame. Charlie showed you can. He was the proof of concept for Marcus Freeman, essentially. Which is, you put in the work, you can get the job done here.
Well, and Charlie was able to win with players that Ty couldn't. I mean, we can't talk about the revival of Notre Dame was because of Brady Quinn and Jeff Samardzija. They did it in spite of Charlie Weiss.
Right.
Agree.
It's literally the same roster they had the year before.
Mm-hmm.
They were only a year older.
Guy.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That was because of Charlie Weiss. 100%. Yeah. They didn't have a bunch of transfers. There weren't like freshmen that were stepping in and just were stars on that team. They did it with the same guys that were on the team the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Good point, Trev.
Folks, that's going to do it for us here today on the Irish Breakdown Podcast. Guys, go live in about an hour on IB Nation Sports Beat. I have an inkling that they're going to be talking about the Knicks game, because title of the show is Notre Dame going to be the next team to end a championship drought? So it's going to be very interesting to tune into that one. Brian and I will be back tomorrow at 1 p.m. On your way out of this show, be sure to hit that like, hit that subscribe, hit that notification bell. Be sure to share this podcast with your friends, family, anybody that you know loves Notre Dame and college football as much as you do. But big recruiting weekend this past weekend, another big one coming up. The best way to stay in tune is be a premium message board subscriber at boards.irishbreakdown.com. So until next time, that's Brian. I'm Trevor. We'll see you back here very soon on the Irish Breakdown Podcast.